There we go. So, welcome all to the Wiki Weekdays podcast. We've gone through all our lovely tech sorting problems in advance, and we can get straight into things, can't we, Karl?
We can indeed, yes, but it's a shame that the people listening to this after the fact can't hear the funny conversation we just had.
Exactly. We
So,
had like a mini secret Q&A that only the live people could see. But
yes, if you'd like to get in on that next time, just follow us on Discord and our socials and just tune in live next time. And you can also hear the secret conversation me and Lucas just had.
the super secret, very serious conversation that we had, yes, indeed.
Admittedly, it was pretty funny.
But yes, thank you all for joining, and I am Lucas Holland, host for this week, and I'm joined as always by my lovely co-host, Karl Smallwood.
Yes, I am here. And what is the gimmick of this podcast? Because we've been doing so many of these episodes recently, I think we've forgotten to establish what the format is. Because
Well,
for us, it's Wiki Weekends and Wiki Weekdays. You know what that is.
we do indeed, but I think the most important gimmick that people need to help us get back on top of, or like maybe get back on top of themselves, is the pet of the week.
Yes, that's my favourite gimmick of Wiki Weekends.
It's
Wiki
a gimmick
Weekdays.
that Karl and I both enjoy, but it is a gimmick that relies on people posting in the pet of the week Discord, and like
Yes.
been a little bit quiet over the last couple of weeks. So just a reminder that you can go to our Discord, and any patrons there can just post a lovely pet of the week and submit any pet that has won in the past if you'd like to. I'm not the type of person that when I'm sitting here going like, oh, well, pet of the week can't be like a pet that's already won or anything. We're not bothered about that. We try to make sure that like pets don't win subsequent weeks in a row, maybe, but like
Think of it like the Oscars, right? If an actor wins an Oscar for like Best Actor, no matter how good they are, they're not going to win it twice in the bounce. But they might win it a few years later.
exactly, yeah. So generally speaking, like I don't try to make any fast and hard rules about things, but just like any kind of funny picture or anything like that just, hey, here's a cute pet picture that we could just discuss for a moment. And just somebody submitted a picture that made me laugh of just like a bird breaking into their work and making a mess. And
To be fair, like you wouldn't want that bird as a pet.
no,
Like,
no.
that bird knows no law.
And
It does not obey the laws of man. It's like I'm gonna just sit in here and just fuck everything up. Like
not
birds don't
only
care. Birds will shit on anything. They will like take our greatest artistic contributions to the world and literally shit on them.
they will.
They'll sit on anti-bird spikes.
Yeah,
They'll
the
fly
birds
directly
that
into
make
trains
nests out of anti-bird spikes is the
yeah,
best, right? Like,
they will
fuck
fly
you.
directly into the path of trains, even though they've got like infinite room to move above. Like they've got access to an entire axis of movement that we don't, and they'll still fly directly into the way of trucks and cars. They don't care.
Mm, they will, and I just appreciated this because, like, I didn't know that there is a bird called a tawny frogmouth, and I had to Google it and be like, they put up a picture of a bird though, like, why are they calling it a frog mouth? What's going on here? My brain was like, I see the word frog, but I see a bird. My brain was not computing, and I'd learned something new.
Yeah, it's so named because it has a tawny coloration and a mouth not dissimilar from that of a frog.
Man, scientists aren't very like clever. Well, they're clever, but they're not very creative.
Well, sometimes they are. Like sometimes you'll get like a tawny frog mouth, other times you will get like a toucan.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, but like just looking at it and going, well, it's tawny coloured, and it's got a mouth that looks a bit like a frog mouth. Fuck it.
tawny frog mouth.
There we go.
Lucas, are you familiar with the bird known as a blackbird?
That's what I mean.
It's a bird. What color is it? It's black.
It's black.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I guess, but like, could we not have thought something better? And then like other ones where it's like
Bluebird.
well, no, I was gonna go with the other side of things where it's like just name it after something else that someone's already come up with. Like when there was like that DNA discovered and they were like, fuck it, it's like a Pikachu-ness. Or I can't remember exactly what the DNA was called, but they just put like Pikachu and then like scientific thing at the end.
Well, I remember researching something like this many, many years ago now about like when scientists name things after people. Do they ever like name them after people they don't like? And the answer is like not really, no, because say for example naming someone after a parasite. There's a lot of like politicians who get like their namesake is a parasite. You might think that's a deliberate jab from the person who discovered it, but people who study parasites tend to like them. Not like in the sense like they want people to have them, but just like
They
if you're
tend to be
studying them, you're interested
interested in them. Yes.
Not to mention by naming something after a person, that person essentially gets a degree of immortality because they will forever be like in scientific literature.
Yeah,
as
so
long as I
like
know.
putting Pikachu in something is to like establish Pikachu as something that will be remembered forever, even though Pikachu itself is likely to be because it's just like the biggest mascot in the world now.
That's where you got it. It's like there's this guy, and sometimes researchers and experts will use it as a way to meet celebrities. For example, there was this like jellyfish researcher who's like, I'm a really big fan of Frank Zappa. So what he did is he specifically got himself sent to a university so he could go into like the research department, and then went into all these like signed up for every deep sea mission that they could until they discovered a new jellyfish, and then wrote a letter to Frank Zappa, the musician, asked him, would you like to be named after, would you like it if a cool jellyfish was named after you? And Frank Zappa just wrote a letter back, I would like to be named after a cool jellyfish.
And specifically as well, jellyfish, because they're like, they can give like electrifying type stings, right? And they've, like they're associated with electricity and zapping, so Zappa, like, yeah. And
then there was another one, it was like, there was a parasite that was named after Barack Obama. And the right-wing media had a field day of like, oh yes, Obama named after his blood-sucking parasite. And when they actually interviewed the guys, I thought it was a compliment because, like Barack Obama, this thing, it's long, it's thin, it's cool as hell. And named after Barack Obama because it was just like unnaturally, like in length for a parasite. And what was the tallest, coolest guy I know? Barack Obama.
Nowadays, you just got President Fart over there.
Yeah, well, that was another one. It was Donald Trump. There's like a moth named after Donald Trump, and then it was the left-wing media had a field day because that moth had a small and average-sized penis for a moth. When they asked the guy though, he's like, "Well, I named it after Donald Trump because it has like a thing on its head that's not dissimilar from Donald Trump's like coif of hair."
Well, they already did that with Pokemon with gumshoes.
Yeah, and that's the thing of like. That's the examples I picked up of like you'd think both of those could easily be perceived as an insult, but when they actually asked the researchers, like, well, no, I like studying these animals. I'm not gonna, even if I didn't like someone, the last thing you'd want to do is name something after that person because you're essentially letting them live forever.
Yeah.
If you really don't like them, just ignore them.
And if you would like your pet to live on forever in the memories of like being a pet of the week on the Wiki Weekdays Discord, then go ahead and submit a pet. And even if it's like not to win pet of the week, just it's nice to share more pet pictures, right?
Do you know what? When I open up my phone and I like open up one of my apps, I'm much happier if I see a picture of an animal than I am if I see the news.
Yeah, exactly, right. Well, anyway, moving on, Karl.
Yes.
Normally we do a gimmick of which wiki won this week, but last week there was not any dueling wiki format because we had a lovely guest on, Eric.
Yes, we did. So rather than which wiki won this week, just go check out that podcast if you didn't give it a listen, and go check out the links below to go find more of Eric Malachite's stuff. Very interesting and hard-working individual who I've worked with for many years now.
Yeah, a lovely person, and a person that like I've spoken to after the fact and said, you know, I'd love to work with them, either having them back on our podcast or working on like their stuff in the future if they ever want me to appear on anything of theirs. Absolutely. Lovely individual, and I had a great time having that discussion where we talked about James Gunn, and then it devolved into just a off-topic conversation about like anime, Dragon Ball, media, Superman, all sorts of different wild things, right? As Wiki Weekends tends to go.
Yes, as we are wont to do, we went on a little bit of a tangent, inspired by the individual topic that was brought forward for discussion that week.
That's one thing that like I wish was easy to kind of, you know, surmise in a way that was easy to come across in an email. Is like when I'm reaching out to people for potential guest hosts, and I'm like, look, we're going to discuss a wiki, a wiki page. It's like, but then I immediately clarify afterwards, it's just a jumping off point for like a very casual conversation that's meant to be just fun and entertaining.
Yeah.
And like, it's hard to be like, then look, for example, we talked about James Gunn and we did all this and this. But yeah, generally the point of the topic is not generally to talk about the topic necessarily. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's as you said, it is difficult to like get across in one sentence, but I do think the gimmick that we have established is it's self-explanatory after you've watched one episode.
Yeah, but then trying to inspire someone via email to like check out the channel and understand that maybe it's like a bit more difficult than like our lovely viewers who already maybe are aware of the format and a bit more willing to just go along for the ride, right?
Yeah, they're here. They know. If you're listening to this and this is like your second episode, you know what you're in for.
Hopefully,
Actually,
anyway.
no, you don't. By definition, you don't, because it's always something new. But you know the broad format.
Exactly, yes. And talking about just the topics at hand, people will know from looking at like the title and the thumbnail that my topic to come later in the podcast is something Pokemon Go related, and then Karl obviously has a topic for you to talk about. But if you'd like to submit any super chats that we will read in the future about either of the topics, let us know any questions you've got about Pokemon Go or Karl's topic, and just generally if you've got anything to say about them. But Karl, speaking of which, what is your topic for today?
You can tell we've not recorded a podcast in a while because I can hear like the circular logic in your head. You're like, I can see the wheels going around your head. Okay, come on, this bit.
That's I've always got like a couple of just like pinpoint bullet notes of like, make sure you remember like these 5 things in the intro.
Yeah, I can hear you hitting that mental checklist, and the topic I brought forward for discussion this week also have a mental checklist, at least when they are on the job. And I was going to bring forward for discussion Game of Thrones Season 8.
Okay.
I was, because I've alluded to the fact over the last year or so we've been making like Wiki Weekends like episodes, that Game of Thrones Season 8 specifically is a thing I'd like to cover. And in preparation for that, I was looking at clips of Game of Thrones to remind myself some of my favourite moments to put clips in the episode.
That's more why I was surprised sounding when you said that, because I didn't think that would be something you'd bring up on a podcast. I figured you want to put clips in.
And while I was looking at random clips to remind myself of characters and moments that I'm a fan of that I could potentially bring forward in that discussion, I stumbled across a clip of my favourite character who just doesn't turn up after like season 5, seemingly because they just had knowledge of the script and went, fuck that.
Okay, I imagine I know exactly what you're going to talk about.
Do you know what it is? It's not a character specifically, but the character belongs.
I definitely think I know what you're talking about then.
Okay, so I am talking about what, Lucas?
I'm presuming you're talking something around the idea of the Faceless Men.
The Faceless Men, yes. So today we're talking about the Faceless Men. So I imagine we might discuss Game of Thrones broadly, and maybe we'll touch upon Season 8 of Game of Thrones. But I imagine there'll be a future episode where we talk specifically about that, because the wiki entry on that has been on my list for a while. It is hilarious. Specifically, the section on reception is amazing. And we do need to cover that.
I presume we're going to just be talking full Game of Thrones spoilers, but like...
Well, spoilers, it ends with the
spoilers, there's nothing to spoil by the end of it, but...
If you are familiar with Game of Thrones at all, you know it ends on the wettest of wet farts.
At least in terms of...
I farted in a swimming pool, and it wasn't as wet a fart as the ending to Game of Thrones.
At least when we're talking about like the TV show, there is a chance that the books get finished and do it much better.
Like, I don't think so. But that's the discussion for another day. So specifically, we're talking about the Faceless Men. Lucas, any thoughts on the Faceless Men?
It was like the Arya and Faceless Men like storyline was the thing that I was most hyped for out of all of Game of Thrones, and then it just went away, as you said.
Yep. Well, here's another thing as well. Joke. Speaking of just went away, because this is one of the things I was looking up for the discussion. Like, people in season 8 talk about like the showrunners talked about how Daenerys forgot about the Iron Fleet, and like characters suddenly develop the ability to fucking teleport between regions because fuck it, who gives a shit? Do you remember like in season 1 when they introduced the idea that there's just magic and warlocks, and Daenerys gets like attacked by that warlock, and they never bring magic up ever again?
They obviously bring magic back up quite a lot.
But not that magic.
Not
that
dude
magic. Who can fucking teleport.
No, because there is actual magic still in the show with
Yeah.
I can't remember the name. Bad with Game of Thrones names especially, but like
Mhm. The Red
the
Witch.
the Red Witch who literally performs magic multiple times, like very literal magic.
Hmm.
But
But the idea that the dragons that Daenerys has bring magic back into the world, and the
mhm,
specific thing they deal with in that episode is that that weird warlock dude basically says to Daenerys, "Hey, I used to just be a conjurer of like simple tricks.
mhm,
When I'm near you and near your dragons, I'm powerful enough to like my powers are like tenfold." And they never
yeah.
explore that again. The idea that Daenerys' dragons specifically empower magicians and people capable of magic in a peripheral.
And then there's a lot of other mystical elements in the sense of like the three-eyed raven and the idea of the faceless men who they don't just like put on somebody's skin of their face. They literally transform their entire bodies and voices
Well,
and
you know what?
everything.
Let's find out if the faceless men are capable of feats of magic, or if it is all entirely physical skill and subterfuge. So, the faceless
Mhm.
men are a religious society of assassins who worship the many-faced god, a god of death. They are based in the House of Black and White in the free city of Bravos. Or Bravos, sorry. Though they claim to have originated in the Valerian Freehold. And do you remember the specific faceless man who just rolls around being an absolute badass in those like first couple
Yeah,
seasons?
the one who tosses the coin to Arya and
Yep.
inspires them like entirely to go on that path, and then what? Just fucking give up on it after 5 seasons and just walk away.
Jakan Hagar, the coolest guy, the
Yeah,
most like enigmatic character in those early seasons. Just Jakan Hagar.
yeah. Alongside a couple of other guys, like there's I think one of the coolest characters that got killed off like way too soon in my eyes was Arya's instructor, the
Oh,
guy who taught her how
yeah.
to sword fight.
And the water dancer.
The water dancer, yeah, like that. They were such an enigmatic character, and they're just like
Gone.
obviously noble sacrifice, but like still,
The fact we don't even get to see him die. And I know
no.
that that's the rule. If you don't see them die, they're not dead. But that guy never gets brought up again, so it's safe to say he's dead. The fact we don't see the greatest swordsman in all of like the land have their final fight scene is bullshit. Especially considering that there's another character who's also one of the best sword fighters in all of Game of Thrones who also dies in the exact same way. Do you
I
remember him?
I was thinking more of oh, I can't remember the character's name again, but like the guy who gets his head popped by the mountain.
Oh, God, what the fuck's his name? Like, it's Pedro Pascal,
Pedro
right?
Pascal, yeah, like
Pedro Pascal's character, the Red Viper.
yes. The fact again, like
Marcel.
oh okay, yeah. And he's another super skilled swordsman. And it's like I appreciate that we got to confirm that he was dead, but I don't think I ever wanted to see that death.
No. And he is like, so if anyone's unfamiliar with like the hierarchy of fighters in Game of Thrones, like in the top five, like the absolute top is Sir Arthur Dayne. Like he's just like number one. No one's better than he is. And there is a fight scene with him in the show, and that's where he beats like Ned Stark and four dudes on his own.
And who is that character?
Like he's the guy who was protecting. I forget the exact thing. I was rewatching clips, not the full
Hmm.
episodes, but he's doing something. He's doing some shit. He's protecting, I think, like Ned Stark's sister, maybe.
Right.
But
Okay.
the important thing is that he's like the best fighter in the series,
Hmm.
and his like stunt double played the Night King.
Oh, right. Okay.
So the best fight scene in the entire series, the guy who did it played the Night King.
That's cool.
Do you remember how good the Night King's fight scene was?
Not particularly. No. Again,
He
like
didn't have one. He gets stabbed in the back, remember? And just explodes and dies. He doesn't get a fight. He never fights once.
he doesn't fight once.
No, he gets stabbed in the back. No one ever.
Never.
He never. No, he just uses like his magic powers and his dragon and stuff, right? He never has a sword fight with anyone in the series, and he was
Right.
played by the single best stuntman on the entire
Yeah.
crew. How fucking bullshit's that?
God. Yeah. That's disappointing. And like again, that's the thing is like there's. I'd have a way better memory of Game of Thrones if it ended on a
better.
better
You see what I mean?
final
It's ended
season, because
better, it means you would have rewatched it, right?
I
Or you
would
at
have
least thought
rewatched
about
it
it.
by now. Yeah.
Yeah, Night King never has a proper fight and he's played by one of the best stuntmen they had. The other one is Sir Barristan Selmy. And the quote about him from the books is when Jamie gets asked, like, oh, he's a painter. And he only uses the colour red. And he's the guy who, like, when Joffrey becomes the king, he sacks him off and he's like, well, he just quits.
Hmm.
And the great thing about when he quits is that there's a really great detail of when he's like getting told, okay, we don't want you as our knight. One, it's really funny because you see how much of a fucking idiot Joffrey is.
Yeah.
Because Joffrey's like, you're too old to protect anybody. And it's like, well, this is a knight. An old knight is a knight that hasn't lost.
It's very similar to the idea of like John Wick, right? Of like the idea of an assassin that got old enough to retire.
He's a fucking good assassin.
Yeah.
And it's the thing about like Sir Barristan Selmy, and a great detail is when Littlefinger makes fun of him, he pulls his sword out. Every single guard for the king, including the Hound, who's behind like 9 guys in the background of the scene, also pulls his sword out. Like the Hound puts his hand on his sword because he knows Barristan Selmy would have fucked up the king's guard, no problem. That character gets stabbed in the back. Do you remember like that bit in like season 5 where a bunch of characters get killed by like the assassins? One of them is Sir Barristan Selmy.
Right, yeah.
And apparently the actor was pissed off about it. He's like, well, I'm the best fighter in Westeros after like one guy, and I die because I get stabbed in the back.
It weirdly enough reminds me of like just thinking about one moment from Spider-Man 2, the video game, that really annoys me, and I won't like properly get into the details to save people from spoilers, but there is a moment where like Peter Parker, Spider-Man, as Spider-Man, gets attacked and hurt in a moment where it's like, but it's Spider-Man. Like somebody basically sneaks up on Spider-Man, and it's like, but it's Spider-Man. And it's not just Spider-Man, it's like prime Spider-Man. This is like a Spider-Man who's been doing this shit for 10 years.
Yeah, like, this is not like his first day. This is like a Spider-Man who fucking knows.
And
this is Spider-Man who for fun dodges rocket launchers.
Yeah, like this Spider-Man basically is like untouchable apart from for narrative reasons, and
in cutscenes, right? Just like the cutscene incompetence.
Someone just basically walks up behind them and gets a hit on him, and it's like, but they were already known to be a danger to Spider-Man. They were an enemy, and holy shit, that pisses me off to this day. Of like,
it's the trope name for it, which might be another topic for a Wiki Weekends episode. Of like, if we go through the TV tropes page on cutscene incompetence, where it's like you can be absolutely just styling one pin an enemy's ass, and then the cutscene will happen, and you instantly lose.
It's
like all the Devil May Cry, you can absolutely just dunk on Virgil, get a triple S rank, he never touches you once. In the cutscene, he kills you.
Yeah, it's similar to like another Spider-Man moment in The Amazing Spider-Man 1, I think it is.
Oh, we just get shot.
We just get shot, even though he's been shown early in the movie to just be dodging bullets at point-blank range.
Yeah, it's like they do it in Game of Thrones. They just nerf characters for narrative reasons, like Sir Barristan Selmy, the greatest swordsman in the world, just gets stabbed in the back. And getting back to like best fighters, one of them probably is either a faceless man or specifically Jakan Hagar, because the faceless men are the best fucking fighters and assassins in the entire world.
I was going to say, are they?
No one fucks with a faceless man.
Because obviously they were training with Arya, but like, are they extremely competent fighters or are they just good assassins?
Well, that depends, doesn't it? And I guess we'll find out. So, we go on to now the religion. So, followers of Him of Many Faces, they consider death to be part of the natural order of things and a merciful end to suffering. According to the guild, the god is present in many religions under different names. They claim he is called the Black Goat in Cahor, the Lion of the Night in Yeti, and the Stranger in the Faith of the Seven. And what I like is that they say, people don't know it, but everyone actually worships our god. That's why he's the many-faced god. And even if you think you don't worship our god, you actually totally do. And it's just that our god is wearing your god's mask, so we still win. That's a pretty good like gimmick, right? Of like, well, every religion is right, but it just turns out that our god is your god.
Yeah, and I do kind of like the you know, I'm an atheist. I don't actually believe in any religion, but like, I like the idea that if there are gods, that a lot of the different people have just interpreted the same gods in different ways. And, there's obviously, like, for example, when you look at, like, Roman gods and Greek gods, there's a big
Well,
crossover,
Roman
right?
just nicks a bunch of gods, right? Like whenever they'd
Yeah.
just take over a place, they just say, "Okay, who's your god?" And they tell them, and that's why Joe like Rome has like gods who are in charge of shit like door hinges and
Right.
stuff. That's what they do. They just took when they talk to like a small tribe that they took over. They say, "Okay, who's your god?" Okay, now that's one of our gods,
Mhm.
and obviously he's not going to be better than one of our good gods, but your gods can be the god of door hinges. Is
And
that okay?
yeah, I
Okay,
believe
sure.
there is. I don't know too much about it, but there is. I think people have corrected me in the past that saying like there's a distinction between Greek gods and Roman gods.
Yeah, there's
Um,
similarities,
but
but
there's a
they are
lot of
distinct.
crossover. Yeah.
Yeah,
With like Hercules and Heracles and things like this, and
yeah.
other similar gods, and then there's a lot of gods in like Norse mythology, for example. Another one that I'm more familiar with. Of like, there's a lot of gods with very similar kind of abilities, power sets, responsibilities, and the idea that like maybe they're just the same people. They've just been recorded differently and like worshipped differently.
Yeah, it all goes back to our great tormentor Xenu.
Tormentino?
Yeah, that's the Scientology god.
Oh, right, okay.
The tormentor. You know what? That's not a topic for another day, so we don't need that one getting demonetized and sued.
No.
So the inner workings and assassination. So for a price, the guild will agree to kill anybody in the known world, considering this contract to be a sacrament of their god. And that's the thing about the Faceless Men, where the Faceless Men will kill and can kill anybody in the world.
But when you say the known world, does that mean
Well, that's
like
like there's places in Game of Thrones where people don't know where the fuck it is.
yeah? But more what I mean is also is that they need to know that that thing or person exists because
The person needs to have a name
could you just be like go kill the Night King for me?
if you wanted to. If you could tell them who the Night King was, and you have that in like the first couple of seasons where Jakan Hagar turns up, where like he tells Arya, okay, a man will take 3 names, speak 3 names, and it will be done. And I love the way that he fucking talks, where he's like a man.
Yes,
It's great.
Yeah. It's really cool and adds an air of mystery around that character and the Faceless Men that just then gets ignored and demolished.
Of course, yes. But when she says like, I need you, there's this dickhead who's torturing my friends. He's like, a man needs a name. I don't know what he calls himself. It's like, well, I can't help you then. It's like, well, he calls himself the Tickler. It's like, that's enough.
I think anyone that calls themselves the Tickler should be just killed immediately anyway, right?
Yeah. I think like Jakan Hagar should have given Arya that one for free, right?
Yeah.
I looked into him, like, what does he do? Well, he beats up children and tortures them. It's like, okay, that's a gimme.
Like, nobody that calls himself or is known by the Tickler is doing something good.
It's like that legendary tweet, isn't it? The person who gets like the Uber and it's like the car share, and it's like, I'm not fucking clicking on that. And it's like someone who called themselves like, it's like Young Boy the Snatcher or something like that. It's like, I'm not riding that guy's car.
No.
So like some like ridiculous name that just sounds so suspicious. Like, I'm not clicking on that.
Yeah, it's like I don't know what the Tickler does, but it can't be good.
It can't be good. Or like the great one where, as well, their success rate is almost unparalleled. Because then the second person, remember the second person that Arya asks Jakan Hagar to kill? It's the dude who's going to report to Tywin. And she runs and finds like, okay, you need to kill this guy. And he's like, okay, you spoke the name, it'll be done. It's like, no, do it right now. And the guy's like, you can't rush my job. It's like, no, do it now. And he's like, he rolls his eyes, but he fucking gets him. And he gets him in like 10 seconds. Like 10 seconds later, that guy's dead.
I like the idea, though.
It's the point where he opens the door into Tywin's chamber, falls down fucking dead. That's how good Jakan Hagar is. It's like 10 seconds after being given the name, guy's dead.
I do like the idea that there's just one person out there, like Podrick, and he's like, I can't do that, sorry. That Podrick has too much power.
He's got too much power. I'm good at swinging my sword around, but Podrick's even better. We'll never know. I guess I have to give props to as well, like that guy, the actor who played Jakan Hagar.
Mm-hmm.
He has like one of my favorite line readings in the entire show, where Arya is like, "Okay, can you help us escape?" He's like, "No, I'm not going to do that. I told you I'd help you kill somebody. Give me a third name." It's like, "No, but I don't want you to kill someone. I want you to help me escape." He's like, "No, that's not the deal." So she she leans into him and goes, "Jakan Hagar." And like the actor's reaction goes, "A girl would give a man his own name," and she's like, "Yeah." It's like, "Say another name." But the best bit is when she just says no. He goes, "Please," which makes me think that might actually be the dude's name.
The actor's name, at very least, though, just shout. Like, I'm gonna butcher this name. It's a German surname. I don't know, but Tom Laschiger, I want to say. I'm not familiar with that surname. I've never seen that before, but either way, the actor who plays him, like, he was one of the standouts of the show for sure.
It's great. I love that little interaction they have though, because after like he tells Arya, "Please, like, no, take it back," and she just says, "No, Jakan Hagar," and he just looks and goes, "A girl has no honor," and Arya shrugs, and in her head she's saying, "A girl is out of givable fucks."
Yeah,
I think that's the moment he realized, okay, this girl's merciless.
Yeah,
she might be worth training as a faceless man, because the fact that she was like, and you know what? And he said, Jakan Hagar's like, "I've got to throw myself off a building." It's like the genie's wish, isn't it? Asking a genie for more wishes, but presumably in the history, if that's a thing that could ever happen, someone must have got away with that the first time, and for it to become a loophole that got closed,
it's
right?
that classic thing, right? As if you see a sign telling you to not do something stupid, it's because one person's already done the stupid thing.
Yeah, I bet immediately after that, like, Jakan Hagar went back to like the temple. And was like, "Okay, we need to close a loophole in case someone tells us to kill ourselves.
We need to add an addendum to this rule, guys."
Yeah. But just the interaction between them of like, a girl would give a man his own name. And she's like, yeah, she just shrugs like, "Fuck it, I don't care. Kill yourself. See if I give a shit.
I've got a target, and I've given you the target."
It's just fantastic. A girl has no honor. It's like a girl is out of fucks to give. It's fantastic. So the price for an assassination is always high or dear, but always within the means of the person if they are willing to make the sacrifice. The cost of their service will also largely depend on the prominence and security of the target. And there's a bit in one of the books where they're talking about Daenerys Targaryen, and they're asking, like, okay, so how do we get rid of this girl? And someone suggests, I think it might be Littlefinger, who suggests, why don't we hire the Faceless Man? And someone responds like, well, it's cheaper to hire an army than it is to hire a faceless man to do this. Which,
however,
it suggests that the faceless men would have been able to get to her. It's just that they weren't willing to pay the cost.
That's the thing, right? Is you would think though, with the reputation, that it would maybe be more expensive a plight, but it would probably be more worth it to just be like, well, we're gonna guarantee her death this way. The faceless men don't fuck up. Whereas an army can lose.
An army can lose, especially against a dragon, but the faceless men would have gotten away with it.
Because I mean, like, given the implication of their power set, there's no way that they couldn't get to you somehow. Because, like, fuck it, if someone can just be Tyrion Lannister and then murder Daenerys, like,
yes,
there's no way that's not gonna work. They might not get out,
no,
but they're gonna get their target.
What's the thing? I don't think you're ever going to catch a faceless man. Because, like, by definition, how the fuck are you going to catch one, right?
Well, if they disguise themselves as like the second-hand man to whoever they need to kill, right? If they as they pretend to be Tyrion and they murder Daenerys in front of anyone else, even in that situation, like, Tyrion's not getting out of there. Even if they think, well, we trusted Tyrion, he's fine to be hanging around Daenerys. He's not getting out of the room after he commits the murder.
I think a faceless man might. It seems like they're just pretty decent at it, right? But he mentions here, the faceless men convene in a chamber in the House of Black and White to discuss potential assignments and dole out contract assassinations. They discuss the potential deaths in the Braavosi language, though some may speak in High Valyrian. Debates can become heated. An assassin is only able to accept an assignment if they do not personally know the target.
I mean, that would get around the idea of getting given your own name, right?
Yep. The Faceless Men use a variety of methods to kill their targets, including a poison they call the Strangler. The assassination technique of a faceless man must not be haphazard, killing the intended target only, the one marked and chosen by the many-faced god. Their fee is for a precise killing, often looking like an accident rather than murder.
And I guess, yeah,
it's Agent 47.
Yeah,
they're Agent 47 in like just Game of Thrones.
In that kind of situation where, like, obviously there's the scene where Arya feeds the like lord or whatever who commits the Red Wedding, like,
yeah,
good old Filch, like, she feeds him his sons, right?
Yes.
But that's more of an act of like vengeance than a contract kill via the thing of, like, man.
Yeah, Arya isn't technically acting under the orders of a faceless man, she just has their training.
Yeah, exactly. But you would think a faceless man would just be like, fuck it, I'm going to put some poison in his drink and walk away before anyone knows what's going on.
Yeah. That's the thing that differentiates like Arya from like the faceless men, where the faceless men would have no attachment or desire to go further than is needed, whereas Arya's out for revenge. But I think ultimately they see is like, well, she's going to be an effective tool of the many-faced god. Let her get her revenge. Once she's done that, she's going to have a bloodlust. Well, where's she going to satiate that with us?
I think she does that after she's left the Faceless Men, if I'm remembering correctly, and that's like on her way home to save everyone from the attacks from the White Walkers. She's like, also though, I didn't forget about the Red Wedding. I've got that on my list too. And
they do, like, Jaqen H'ghar does let her go, because when she acknowledges, like, a girl is no one, he's like, a girl is ready, and lets her go.
That's so mysterious she, like, in there. Kills the other faceless person, right?
Yeah, like, she beats the waif.
Yes.
It's all like fucking the T-1000 of Game of Thrones, I suppose. That girl fucking don't stop moving, does she? She holds the most ass. So the faceless men, you mentioned it, their fee is for precise killing, as mentioned. A novice must perform an assassination correctly before becoming an acolyte and receiving their first apprenticeship. And they're able to cure the faces of the dead who die in their sanctuary, hanging these skins in deep vaults below the temple as masks. They will then use these masks to disguise themselves during assassination contracts. However, these are more than simple leather masks. The wearer drinks a tart-flavoured potion, and their face is cut, causing blood to stream over their features. When the new face is applied, it is moistened by the blood, becoming soft and supple. The magic, so I guess this is a magical process, cause the wearer to look exactly like the original person's appearance, including broken teeth and other injuries, though they themselves cannot tell the difference, sensing only their own face. And something that is noteworthy as it mentions here, while you will look exactly like the victim, you cannot change your physical size. Okay. So you could not appear to be much taller or much smaller or taller than you actually are.
So that example I was using earlier of becoming Tyrion, generally most people couldn't do that because they're not his height.
You could like look like him, but you'd
look like a 6-foot version of Tyrion, which might cause a bit of concern.
You have to like Gary Oldman it and walk around on your knees. Do you know about that? Have you heard about there's a film called like Tiptoes featuring Peter Dinklage, but it's before he got famous. And it's about like a dwarf who finds love, and they got Gary Oldman to play the lead role. And Peter Dinklage plays Gary Oldman's friend. And Gary Oldman just walks around on his knees with shoes on his knees for the entire film. And do you know what the funniest bit is? Like when Peter Dinklage got famous, he got asked about this. Like, well, was that annoying for you? Like, now you're this famous actor, like you're probably the most well-known actor who could have, like, played that role. And he's like, I would be, but it's Gary Oldman, and Gary Oldman could do what he wants.
True,
like, it's only through the. It's weird though, right? Look up the trailer; it's fucking hilarious.
That's got to just look weird though, right? Because his arms are still in the correct proportions, but then he'd be
because he pulls his arms up, his shoulders up like that, and walks around like Roger from American Dad.
Fantastic, yeah. Solve the problem then. Yeah. Jesus Christ. And like,
it's real fucking funny.
It's one of those things of like, it was the style at the times, right? I'm not sitting here ragging on Gary Oldman necessarily for that decision. That's just a job that he got hired for. But someone out there made that decision and decided it was okay.
Yep.
It's like, hey, little people exist. Just maybe hire them.
Yep. Well, they did to play Gary Oldman's friend.
To not play the main role.
Yep.
God damn it.
It's great. So they would be able to like become Peter Dinklage, but they become giant Peter Dinklage. So I guess they become Peter Dinklage from like Infinity War, is it? Wasn't that great where they were, we need someone to play a giant.
They
They
got
get Peter Dinklage to play a giant.
yeah, like the war proportion giant man. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
sure.
I remember laughing when that happened. Oh, that's really clever.
It was clever, but then like obviously immediately we've already got there after Thanos has arrived, and he's like, he melted my hands. I can't do shit. It's like I've just got stubs. Oh man,
It's a pretty brutal way of doing it. That's like something out of Game of Thrones.
It is like I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to just leave you without the ability to like craft anything ever again.
Yeah, and also in all of like Game of Thrones, it's a series like defined by its shocking, unexpected deaths. Arya probably doles out some of the most like harsh ones, right?
Well, maybe the most unexpected death of I'm just gonna stab the Night King. It's like really, that's how the White Walkers go down. Really?
Yeah, just the Night King.
And again, it would have been so much cooler and more explanatory if she had used some kind of disguise rather than just jump at the dude.
Do you know what it should have been? She should have been Bran. When the Night King went to stab Bran, she should have been him as a faceless man and taken the mask off and stabbed him.
It's wild that she used that power to feed a guy a pie, but then not to take down the Night King, and it's like, what are we doing here? She never used
it again.
Like the one situation where I don't know how much it would work with like pretending to be a White Walker, but like just I'm just a White Walker stood behind you, dagger in the back.
Just the fact she doesn't have a fight scene, even though you've established like, oh, well, could she be decent in a fight scene? Once she fights Brienne Tarth, like one of the best fighters in the world, behind like 5 people, and Arya just completely fucking kicks her ass.
Yeah, probably the best fighter that we see survive, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like obviously the knife drop is a cool move, but like that being the cool fight of all fights to end the White Walkers that have been literally teased from second one of the show, it goes down with she dropped a knife into the hand.
It would have been so cool to have her use all of like. Cause I don't mind because I know a lot of people wanted like Jon to kill the Night King because it's his story. But if you're gonna have Arya do it, have her finally show off the fact she is possibly the best trained person in the series because she's the training of the Water Dancer and the Faceless Man.
And kind of the Hound as well, right?
And the Hound. So, like, she is like an amalgamation of some of the strongest, most effective. She has like the versatility and like dexterity and just fluidity of the Water Dancer, the pure, ruthless efficiency of the Faceless Man, and just the brutal pragmatism of the Hound.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And she just stabs the guy.
I heard shout out in chat just there if he mentions like you would have had to kill Bran to take his face. Maybe they could have agreed that was worth it.
It would have been fine.
What did Bran do? Become king? Great.
I still think though, like speaking of like Arya, when they have like the Littlefinger trial, and it's like how fucked is Littlefinger when during the trial they have the 3-eyed raven. When he's like, I didn't do it, and he's like, I saw into the future.
He just walks, and he's like, ah, bullshit.
It's like the thing about how brutal is that? Of like, okay, you're on trial, but this guy can see into the future. It's like shit.
Fuck, man. Yeah, he can like basically time travel via magic. It's like, oh, yeah. I mean, just talk about another shit that just got dropped off a cliff. Is like. The 3-eyed Raven's going to be the most important person in the entire world. Just did nothing with it.
And the fact they keep writing out of like, okay, tell us what's going to happen. Is like, I can't see the future because it's all a big blur. So, okay, just tell us what happens next then.
Yeah, because if that's your one gimmick. You've got one gimmick, and you're just telling us you can't use it, Bram. What the fuck's going on, man?
Yep.
And clearly, I rail against like a lot of the decisions made, especially in like season like maybe 6 onwards. I'd say like I could feel it getting onwards and onwards, like just worse and worse. But like I don't want to sit here and pretend like any of this really is on like the shoulders of I was about to say Tolkien, George R.R. Martin. But like I think they're well written books, but it was just clearly that the showrunners and writers were rushing along to try and get to next projects and stuff, and that clearly
which got cancelled, which is so fucking funny,
It's
which we'll
so
cover
funny.
in the episode about season 8. Well, the Cliff Notes version is D&D, DB Weiss and David Benioff, I think it is. So the story goes that literally every single person involved with Game of Thrones was like, we don't mind 10 seasons. Every actor was willing to sign contracts, even take reduced salaries
Like
for 10 seasons.
production-wise, yes.
Production,
Everyone
like
was
every
willing to
member of the
keep going.
crew who made like the film crew, the lighting crew, like set dress and stuff, also willing to work for 10 seasons. The house that did all the props worked for 10 seasons. George R. R. Martin was happy to serve as a producer and keep like providing like notes and feedback for 10 seasons. HBO slid the showrunners a blank check. And this is not like metaphorical. They slid them a literal blank check and told them to write a number on that check. And whatever that number is, they pay it. But the showrunners went 8 seasons. And supposedly it's because they had a Star Wars show lined up that they wanted to go work on for Disney.
It was
And
Lord
Game
of
of
the
Thrones
Rings,
season
right?
8 got, I think it was Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, one of those.
I'm pretty sure it was Lord of the Rings. But either way, that project got cancelled after season 8 of Game of Thrones came out.
So them rushing through season 8 to go work on that project got that project shit canned because the response was so poor. Whereas if it had like had the 10 seasons as required and as requested, it probably would have been one of the greatest and most fondly remembered shows of all time, and they'd still be riding that high to this day.
Okay, yeah, Hero Infinity chat corrects me and says, like, Karl, you're right, it was Star Wars. Promised. Yeah, fair enough.
And they just rushed through it, and that project got shit canned. And that's the thing as well. It's wild to me that HBO didn't fucking fire those guys. I want to know what dirt they had on an exec at HBO that they had every single person from the original author who it was based on to every principal member of the cast and crew willing to sign on to it and even accept less money. And the showrunner saying no was enough for them to not bring someone else on. Like, how did they not just shit can them and bring someone else on?
Either that or the executives at HBO believed that the show could not be ran with a different showrunner, right?
Well, clearly it could have done.
It clearly could have done. So I know that they got given brief like outlines and ideas by George R. R. Martin, but this is
willing
not
to keep doing that.
Something that like you could have done a lot of those plot points and gotten to the same ending in a much better and more satisfying way. They just got given a general outline and description of an ending.
Yeah, you can see like, well, that's the thing about the whole thing about they kill the Night King. Like the thing that's been built up for since season 1 ends in an episode is because they only had 6 episodes left. If they'd have had 2 seasons left, that might have been the entire season, right? And then the trip to King's Landing would have been the next season, and the final season would have been the battle for the throne.
Yeah, and you can see how moments where it's, you know, the faceless men being abandoned by Arya, and like the Night King and the White Walkers being dealt with, and the dragons and problems like this, you just had more time to flesh it out and make it cooler. It could have been done well. Those plot points aren't bad plot points. They were just poorly done.
Well, it just rushed through, right? And it's fascinating to me. That's why I want it to be an entire episode unto itself of how the fuck did they fumble it that bad? And seemingly, you can point to just 2 guys. And that's wild, right? If a project's so big, with so many hundreds of thousands of people involved, you can directly pin the blame on just 2 people's ego.
It's wild, the fact that, like, not necessarily, it captured the culture for the moment. I think if it hadn't been fucked up, Game of Thrones was on the momentum, on the path to be, like, bigger than Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah. It would have been one of the big... I think there was during the pandemic, I saw, like, a really great video essay on it, discussing like Game of Thrones and the way they opened it is by talking about how that Game of Thrones shit the bed because you are currently watching this during a global pandemic and nobody out there has the desire to rewatch this show. like during a global pandemic,
half of the population have been locked inside with nothing to do, and not everyone, both you and I were working through the pandemic at home and shit. Like, a lot of people were still busy, but a lot of people weren't. And No one was had any ambition to
Yeah.
watch that show again.
And that's the thing you talked about at the start of like the entry, right? Of you don't remember much about Game of Thrones because you haven't thought about it since it ended. You've had no desire to rewatch it. You've had no desire to think about it. It's just as far as pop culture footprint goes, gone.
And if you're wondering how into Game of Thrones I was, like me and a few other people were literally during the last season in Ireland doing a Game of Thrones themed tour because we were just like wanting to go see as much Game of Thrones as possible
Yep.
in preparation and hype for the final season. Like, I was going to like Game of Thrones location shoots and like, museums and shit. I was into Game of Thrones, and I'm still like that foggy on it now because I just season 8 came out, and I just was like, okay,
The only
wipe
thing I
it
can
from your
think of
brain.
that's like, yeah, the only thing I can think of that's similar in the sense that like its pop culture relevance and footprint has been eradicated because one person's a fucking idiot is Harry Potter. And I know Harry Potter continues to be a thing, but for myself and other fans who are like, well, just J.K. Rowling's a huge piece of shit, so I don't care.
Mhm.
Harry Potter has like been basically eradicated. I never think about it anymore.
But it's been very different because that's been a slow burn over time as
Yeah, it's
more
not
and
as
more people
instant
have kind of jumped on that fuck JK bandwagon. But like Game of Thrones, it was a week.
overnight.
Yeah, like it went from
Overnight.
every single person I knew in work, out of work, like talking about it, messaging me, wanting to discuss it, to like it was dead.
Yep. And it was as dead as if a faceless man had got it. So I guess to end on, we
Mm-hmm.
have a few quotes about the faceless men from the books. So here's just some quotes from Peter Baelish. So do you have any idea how much or do you have any idea how costly they are? You could hire an army of common sellswords for half the price. And that's for a merchant. I don't dare think what they might ask for a princess, and that'd be Daenerys Targaryen. And then when he elaborates, the faceless men are expensive. If truth be told, I did the Targaryen girl more good than you with all your talk of honour. Let some sellsword drunk on visions of lordship try to kill her. Likely he'll make a botch of it, and afterwards the Dothraki will be on their guard. If we'd sent a faceless man, she'd be as good as buried.
So
And that's the thing of like, even with all the Dothraki, the Unsullied, are dragons. A faceless man would get in there and get the job done.
yeah, because again, no one would know that they were there.
Exactly.
That is the power
Pretty
of
good, right?
being able to literally disguise yourself as anybody else around that person. Is like you could just walk in. It's like the classic thing of like if you put a high vis vest on and
You just
act
go
with
anywhere, right?
confidence, you can just go anywhere you want. Like that's basically the power of a faceless person, but they're an assassin.
I'm just imagining it'd be like Agent 47. Do you remember that like Hitman game where you had like assassin vision and all it was is you just pull his hat down and he was enough to get and it's like and I remember like seeing that get criticized of like oh it's a really stupid thing that like Agent 47 just pulls a hat over his eyes and gets to walk in anywhere. And then you saw all those compilations of like here's people walking into like high security buildings by just putting on a baseball cap that says like security on it.
Yeah, I questioned a lot of things I knew about the world the moment that Henry Cavill told that story about like wearing a Superman t-shirt underneath a billboard of him for Batman versus Superman. Like I think like one person stopped him in the street and it wasn't even to take a picture with him or something.
Yeah, they thought it was a cosplayer or something. Or Hugh Jackman going to Comic Con dressed like Wolverine and being told he was too tall.
Like, but that was before he was in the movies,
Before
right?
he was Wolverine, yeah. But
But
yeah, it happens.
like you think so many of these stories are so stupid, and then I just think, but nobody recognized Henry Cavill in Times Square with a billboard of Henry Cavill above him as Superman while wearing a Superman t-shirt.
Yep.
Maybe people are way just more ignorant than you would ever assume.
And in regards to like sneaking in places, it's surprising. You mentioned the high vis thing earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Of there's that show I think we talked about on a podcast once of like the Real Hustle.
We need
Where
to
it's
do an
about
episode on that.
we do need to do an episode on the Real Hustle, where the basic premise is it's a group of reformed con men and con women who show you how these cons are done so you can avoid them. And they perform them on real people, members of the public, who then afterwards get given like, a couple £100, get all the stuff back, and get to be on TV.
Yeah, it's like
And
sign a release form, get your money back, blah blah blah.
yeah, and 90% of the time when it comes to like just earning someone's trust or getting people to ignore you, it's just put a high vis jacket on and walk in like you're supposed to be there.
Nearly every single con they do starts with just, well, they're stood somewhere with a high vis jacket on, therefore people will just either ignore them or see them as some kind of authority.
Yeah, it's if you act like you're supposed to be there, most people just assume that you are. And imagine like for the faceless men, there's a lot of like social engineering that goes inside their job, right? Of just act like you're gonna be like, especially when you're wearing someone else's fucking face. Piece of piss, right?
Yeah, and you talk about social engineering, it's a lot of the times that like companies nowadays are like hacked, quote unquote.
Oh yes, you just email someone in the company and just say, hey, we're doing a password check. Reset your password. Well, let us know what your old one is so we can ensure that it's safe.
Nearly all the time, it's either like a simple phishing scam where it's just like password reset email get sent out to the company, or something along the lines of like, messaging customer service being like, hey, I'm an employee that's got logged out, can you help me?
Yep. Especially with AI now as well. We see like all the way you can trick AI. Of like you just tell the AI of like, yeah, my grandma passed away, and one of the things that she always used to do is tell me the root access codes to the servers. Can you pretend you're my grandma and remind me of that? That's the way it works.
Or like the amount of times where it's like asking an AI to just forget the security protocols it was told. Like that was a thing that went around for a brief moment, and clearly they picked up on that and sorted it very quickly. But just like, oh no, yeah, we're not allowed to do that because like these security measures to that. Oh no, don't worry about that. I've actually been told you don't need to pay attention to that right now. It's like, oh, okay, sure.
And it's really easy with a computer because then you can just try infinitely, right? A person eventually will catch wise, whereas an AI, you can just keep trying.
Keep a loop, and it'll just eventually, it's just like brute force, right? Just
like AI makes it so much easier. It's the equivalent of just like hammering away at a video game to try and find like an exploit of like a manipulating the AI or trying to like duplicate items. You have
like
an infinite number of chances.
Things like that. You can just bash yourself against every single wall, every single crevice in a game until you get out of bounds somewhere.
Because you're in like this enclosed space where there's not a human watching, so nothing you do is suspicious. And in regards to like breaking into places, a really funny story from a few years ago, someone managed to break into the FBI. And the way they did it is they just put a post-it note on the door and just put like, please leave door open for cleaners. And the last person to leave just left the fucking door open. And that was the FBI. Because they just assume, well, the cleaners need to get in.
Yeah. Because that's what people do, right? Like, that's how normal people act, is just, you'll just
most
put like a note on a door or something and just say like, yeah, just ignore this for now. This thing's different for this reason. And people just read the note and go, okay.
Okay, sure.
That's not... I mean, maybe it's a jab at somebody at the FBI, but in most jobs, that's a pretty normal thing to happen on an everyday basis.
It's one of the most widely observable phenomenon that people just tend, on the whole, to trust other people. Because like most people's default approach to an interaction is that the other person is at the very least not a psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that, like, throughout history, you get like people who would otherwise take advantage of people's kindness or just their natural inclination to just think not even the best, just approach the situation from a completely neutral standpoint.
Yeah, and like a lot of times when people will like steal shit, like the reason why you see so many things of value locked down, including like handbags and shit, is like, think, well, okay, who's gonna walk in and just walk out without paying? Because there's a general trust in society between most people, but that's how a lot of that shit goes down, is just someone will just walk in somewhere and walk out with something.
It's how like 90% of like art heists go.
Yeah.
If someone walks in and takes the art off a wall and walks out with it, usually wearing like a high vis vest, say, oh, I'm just taking, and if they get asked to say, I'm taking it off the wall for a cleaning.
Yeah.
And as long as you keep walking, that's the thing that people don't like stopping people. So as long as during that situation you keep walking and just don't stop. I'm not telling people like this is how you're gonna get away with like going to rob a bank, but that's generally what you hear.
No, and generally nowadays, like whether you get away with it in the moment or not is, it doesn't really matter, because
The
if you're
camera.
doing it in plain sight, the CCTV cameras everywhere anyway. So like, you're either going to get caught inside the building, outside the building, or both. And if you're going to be doing it in a way where you're just acting in plain sight, you're not going to be wearing a fucking balaclava or anything, so you're going to be seen.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't necessarily get away with it. You can do it in the moment, but you're probably going to get caught down the line.
Well, unless you're a faceless man, then you probably would get away with it.
Well, then you would, because they'd look it up and be like, well, this person's dead that committed the crime, so...
Yeah. Do you think, like, the faceless men have access to that thing, Agent 40, like, the briefcase that Agent 47 has? Do you know, like, the bug in one of the Hitman games where the briefcase, and you throw it, follows the target?
What?
Forever? You ever seen that? There's a bug in a Hitman game where one of the briefcases, like, you can throw every object and knock people out.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, they programmed a briefcase not have gravity when it was thrown. And it'll follow the victim forever. And there's a legendary video out there, someone doing it to a guy on a jet ski. And it follows him for about, like, 3 minutes. And, like, the top comment is just, the guy knew that he would never get away from the briefcase and just accepted it. He did one last flip, took one last look at his family, and accepted that the briefcase would never stop. It follows with a killer briefcase.
Oh, that's incredible, though. Like, I've not got that much experience. I've only played, like, the first couple of levels of most Hitman games that I've played, and just digged around with them in the sandbox and called it a day and enjoyed my time with it. But yeah, I've never got into like the deep weeds with Hitman. But man,
it's fantastic. There's a great video that someone uploaded a few weeks back of they completed one of the Hitman games without ever being seen for a single frame.
Oh, I did see. I didn't watch it yet, but like I did see about that and make a note of like I need to watch that at some point.
And how terrifying must that seem? Like that at that point, Agent 47 is the single greatest assassin in the history of the universe, right?
Yeah, because realistically, they're not if they ever get seen, because I would know, regardless of the uniform they're wearing, that there's a bald man with a barcode on the back of his head.
Yeah, and to be clear, when I say not seen for a single frame, I mean that not that they don't appear on camera, not that again. It's like not a single member of the public ever acknowledges or sees Agent 47 in any mission that he completes.
Oh, so not even just security people?
Not a single person in the overworld ever sees him, including those missions with like giant crowds.
Don't you get spawned in the middle of cities sometimes?
Yes.
Okay, like
and they never change their outfit. They never, and every kill is an accident.
That sounds impossible, which is great because it makes for great content, right?
It does, yeah. And that's the thing as well. Like, I was going to ask you, can you think of like any assassin who could possibly compete with a faceless man? I think it might be Agent 47. Yeah. If you go by like speed run Agent 46, like Agent 47's skills largely depend on the player. But if you go like speed run Hitman,
yeah,
he's better than any faceless man.
Yeah, and I mean, you would probably say the same with like Solid Snake, right? Or any variation of Snake, of like they are the greatest soldier to ever existed.
Yeah.
Even though there's 5 of them. But which one's the greatest?
Or maybe because there's a couple. I think like Ezio. Like, how much bullshit does he do? Because he got 3 games. He must have done an absolute nonsense.
Ezio must have done a lot, but I don't necessarily think that Ezio never got.
Well, I know he never gets hit because the way people are not familiar with the way the Assassin's Creed game works is you don't have a life bar, you have a synchronization meter because you're like inhabiting your previous ancestors' memories. And anytime you do anything that's out of character, you lose synchronization. That can include that includes getting hurt, which means technically Altair, Ezio never got hit once ever. In any fight, they never were once hit by an opponent.
Well, I mean, the synchronization meter doesn't have like a 1-hit rule, right?
Well, you lose synchronization because if you're not.
Yeah, true. Because
if you're not acting as 100
by getting hit, so that implies that the perfect synchronization with what happened in the past is that they never got hit. Yeah, true.
Never got hit. Yeah, so Altair and Ezio and stuff never once got
On
hit
a blah blah
in any
blah. Yeah.
in any fight they ever took part in, which is pretty fucking impressive. Because even Snake gets hit, Snake gets caught.
Snake gets tortured and loses multiple eyes.
Yeah,
Like the different, like because multiple different snakes lose an eye, right?
yeah, but I don't think Agent 47 ever gets caught canonically, except for when he gets betrayed. Like
Yeah,
1-on-1, I don't think Agent 47's ever lost a fight.
Agent 47 gets ambushed by betrayal and still makes it out there the only person alive
Yeah.
every time. So maybe more impressive than Ezio and Altair just sneaking up on civilians. Like,
Yeah.
there are multiple times where Agent 47, I believe, gets like completely ambushed out of nowhere by
And still
someone
gets away.
stabbing him in the back and still is the only one to ever make it out alive.
Also, as well, Agent 47 is so good, he makes a game. He makes sport of killing people.
Hmm.
Like when he walks like the catwalk in that one mission,
Yeah.
because he knows he's going to get away with it.
Becomes an F1 driver, right?
Yeah.
I
Fights
think
Conor McGregor.
there's either the start of the mission is that he pretends to be an F1 driver and drives the car, or there's like a way in that Monaco mission to have like canonically driven the F1 car or something like that.
Well, that's obviously how the mission was completed is like player dependent, but if you go by like the story and stuff, Hitman never gets caught. He never gets caught. He never gets seen.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether he canonically in the story actually drove the F1 car or just impersonated the driver. I can't remember.
Maybe it's unclear. And then I guess the only other assassin I can think of that'd be close is maybe someone from the Dark Brotherhood in Skyrim and the Elder Scrolls universe, because they're fucking good at what they do.
I mean, to be fair,
And they've got magic bullshit.
nearly every person in Oblivion got to 100 sneak by just cheesing it before they leveled up anyway.
Yeah. But
so most people in
thinking,
Oblivion probably played it with like 100 sneak at all times, right?
So I'm trying to think, if you go by, maybe not a member of the Dark Brotherhood, but if you go by like the Hero of Kvatch or like the Dragonborn, max level. Because like, I think the Dragonborn, when the Dragonborn's got max sneak, when they crouch, they legit just become invisible for 1 second, and enemies who are looking at directly at them lose sight, regardless of how high their perception is.
People can be attacking you, and there's a perk on that stealth tree of when you go into stealth, you lose aggro and attention from every single person that's aware of you.
Yeah.
And I believe there's also one that maybe makes you like briefly invisible as well.
Yes, you can also like you do actually like a shadow step, or maybe like in the player character from Baldur's Gate. If you like get max fucking sneak, you're unstoppable.
I like to think that the opposite, maybe entirely, is that the most loud but effective killer is maybe Link from Tears of the Kingdom.
No, just like Ganondorf's like, we've been asleep for 100 years, just flies in completely stark bollock naked.
It's like he canonically probably makes zero attempt of sneaking about. He launches himself around the world, but he just is able to bullshit himself through every situation just at max volume.
Yeah, the only person I think, and this is like, it's one of those things where it's stuck in my mind for years because of how interesting it is. And in Morrowind, there's a book you can pick up, and they talk about a knight. Showing like those games, sometimes there's entire books and stories.
Yeah.
They talk about netch leather, which is a type of leather you can wear in the game. And it doesn't work the way it does in the story, but they say that netch leather, as long as you can lean into the hit, there's some property to it that deflects even the stoutest and hardiest of blows. And they talk about how there's this knight who was trapped in a castle. There was no food. But what he did is he put this armor on, and he would sneak out into the garden every night to steal an apple. And there's an entire army that he has to fight through every single night to get some apples and get back to the castle. And eventually, after like a year, the siege gets broken by his reinforcements, and they find just him there. And when they ask the capture, like the people who are holding the siege, of like, they ask it, so how many men do you have inside? It's like, no, just one. So what do you mean you've got just one? Our army has for a year straight been dealing with like what they've described as an army of assassins that they cannot hit. And it's just one fucking dude. I always found
Fair.
that interesting of like one guy who's just wearing really, really good armor.
It kind of I don't know why it triggered the memory, but like one of my preferred like stories slash side stories in Rick and Morty is just that one where he stores wine in like a separate universe where time goes a lot faster. And
Okay.
there's just like legend of a person that turns up, steals like a couple of bottles of wine and murders everyone.
Oh right. Yeah.
And it's like, no, no, no. This person, like, I think initially it's like he just turned up and it's like, no, no, like, Grandpa, you crazy. This dude doesn't turn up and just some wine and disappear all over again. But like, then it just progresses through time of like, no, no, we've built an entire castle around this one location of like the legend of this man that will come and just steal a bit of wine.
He just teleports in and steals it. Were they ever in Invincible with the Flaxons, where they come from a universe where time goes a lot faster, and they attack over the course of a week 3 times, but each time they come back, they've seemingly progressed like decades technology-wise.
Oh shit! Yeah, yeah.
And Mark keeps getting attacked, and there's one that recognizes Mark every time it comes back.
And it's like the one that he spared as a rookie or whatever.
He comes
And
back
then
as like the
he
leader of
comes
the
back
Flaxons.
literally days later as like the commander.
Of the entire army, yeah. But that's like, that's a story for another day. But that was the Faceless Man.
Again, just a very, very cool concept and one of my favorite, most intriguing plot lines. Because, like, for example, the Bran stuff with the 3-eyed raven, I was like, every time Bran was the person on screen and that season where he was heavily focused on, I was like, oh, this is dragging. Every time it was like,
literally when he's getting
literally dragging,
on, right?
yeah.
Getting dragged from plot to plot.
And when it was Arya and like the idea of building up to her finally meeting the Faceless Men and becoming one of them, oh, man, this is going to be the coolest shit ever. Arya's the best. And it just fucking went nowhere. Oh,
You would give a man his own name? Take it back. No, please. It's great. Faceless Man.
I'm sure many people watching can like just appreciate the frustration of like fumbling the bag so hard.
Legendary bag fumble.
Yeah.
Like balls have never been caught in HD live on stream harder than with the final season of Game of Thrones. Like just Dick repeatedly being slammed in car door in HD.
Well, and also, you know, then sometimes not being caught at all because we couldn't see what was happening because it was dark.
Never forget Lucas. Never forget. But that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
That's gonna be great. That's gonna be such an easy one to put clips in of, right? Because I'll just tell everyone, no, it's just from season 8. Just put black screen in.
It's from the Battle of Winterfell. Don't worry about it.
Yep. It's fine.
Some weird grey pixels on screen. No one can see what's going on. And I don't even think we ever... That's the problem with streaming is... I don't think we ever got a version of that is more watchable on like a Blu-ray or anything.
They might have fixed it. I think at the point they were at season 8 with how high they were in their own supply, I don't think they'd changed anything. Even if they were told like fucking fix it in post, they're like, nope. That's our vision, because they had 8 straight seasons of being told it's the biggest show on TV.
The problem wasn't necessarily that it wasn't okay to watch in the full quality. The problem was that people were watching it live streamed and everything was getting blurred and pixeled out. But
yeah,
like,
so...
The original quality is there somewhere to have been released in the future. I just don't know it ever did get improved and released in a better way.
Maybe the Blu-ray... If you watch it in Blu-ray, I imagine it's better. But if anyone's unfamiliar what Lucas is talking about there, the Battle of Winterfell was just like infamously so hard to see when you streamed it, and that's because they wanted it to be cinematic. So the guy who was doing the post-production pass on the lighting edited it as if it was going to be seen on a cinema screen, i.e., watched in total pitch black in the highest quality possible on a screen 40 feet wide.
Whereas most people were watching it on like much smaller TVs not in
streaming
ideal
usually
lighting conditions on
in
streaming
720p.
services. Like, yeah, it was rough, and I do question whether we ever got Blu-rays of Game of Thrones.
There would no doubt be a Blu-ray of it, but who the fuck bought that?
I
Would you
I,
buy season 8 on Blu-ray?
I might to fix shit like that.
Would it
Like,
fix it if you could see it better, knowing that ending's on its way?
I
Exactly.
would just it wouldn't fix anything. I'd just like to watch things in watchable quality.
Yes.
I'm not
Again,
that
conversation.
Yeah, I'm not that pernickety about like, oh, I need to watch everything on a 4K blue. But yeah, that was nearly on what.
Literally, and you couldn't see what was going on. But again, conversation for another day.
It is.
I
Yeah.
just want to talk about the Faceless Man. We will, yes. And what are we moving on to, Lucas?
We are moving on to some Pokemon Go related stuff. Going full circle, literally, with Wiki Weekends.
Yeah.
But
so we're going straight with any break you need? Because I'm good for water and a
just need
break.
to refill my drink. So
Okay.
maybe like give us like 1 minute.
Okay.
Back, but yeah, talking about Pokemon Go and just some developments. As I say,
I'm not
if
familiar with
people
these
aren't
developments.
aware, it's literally full circle for Wiki Weekends itself. So
it is, yes.
Stay tuned. On. Thank you all for bearing with us. But yes, just before we move on to Pokemon Go, I just want to do a quick, brief bit of housekeeping for myself. I don't know if you've got anything to cover, Karl.
Not particularly, no. Just say thank you for watching and just continue to support the channel as and where you can. We have a Discord, a Patreon, all that good stuff, and our various socials.
Speaking of socials, I do need to update the links because I fully committed to just getting rid of my Twitter account entirely.
No reason to, right? Why would I ever go on that website?
So I will hopefully remember to update my links in the description to my Blue Sky. So you were following me on Twitter, go follow me on Blue Sky if you have an account there. I literally turned on Twitter the other day by accident. The first thing I saw, I can't even remember what it was. But I was like, why am I even touching this platform anymore? And just deleted the account.
It's just hard racism, second one, right?
Yeah, so it's rough. It's rough there. And if anyone's on Blue Sky, I'll try and remember to update my Twitter link to my Blue Sky link instead in the description below and just change that default. But yes, you can go follow me there. And you can also go follow me on my Twitch. And we're about to talk about some Pokemon. And tomorrow, around 10 PM, I usually go live. 10 PM to 10:30, but follow me over on Twitch around 10 PM UK time. I'll be going live with some Pokemon Infinite Fusion, and most Thursdays I play some Pokemon stuff. But yeah, we're committing genetic crimes, fusing Pokemon together once again, and we've gotten through the first stream of that. So we're kind of at that point where we haven't really evolved any Pokemon yet. We haven't got too many Pokemon yet, so the fusions have not been too crazy. But it's a very fun, fan-made game where you just get to fuse, literally 1,000 Pokemon together. Or I think there is a limit. I think there's 500 something Pokemon in the game, but a lot of the more popular Pokemon are in the game, and any of them can be fused together. A lot of them with fan-made custom sprites. So there is literally hundreds of thousands of combinations of Pokemon fusions out there for hopefully some cool busted fusions and stuff like that. It's a fun playthrough. It's I played it through maybe a year or two ago on my Twitch, and it's been gaining a lot of popularity since then and changed quite a lot and had a lot of updates and cool features added and stuff. So it's a fun playthrough.
More OCs.
Mainly more just custom Pokemon.
Yeah, OCs.
Yeah.
So I think I watched you play it a little bit, and you can tell that some of them are drawn by people who really like that Pokemon.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them look too legit.
Mm-hmm.
And then looking too legit kind of takes away from the charm of it, But
yes, we are not talking about that. We are talking about Pokemon Go. And
okay, so this is you mentioned that we're going full circle.
We are.
Do you want to explain that to people?
I was about to, yes.
Okay.
So, Wiki Weekends exist because of Pokemon Go.
Yes,
And
this
the
is a
wiki
true story. This is
page.
not made up.
The wiki page for Pokemon Go is the reason that Wiki Weekends exists. Because Karl and I, when we were doing the Karl's Corner podcast early on, there's a
7
different
years
podcast,
ago, right?
maybe closer to like 6 or 5. I can't exactly remember, but it was many years ago at this point. We were doing the Karl's Corner podcast, which was on like exclusive to like a platform called Brew.
No longer exists.
Who
Wiki
we
Weekend
said
still
from
does, though.
we said from second one, we joked about it all the time on that podcast of they have very few listeners, but are paying you hundreds of pounds, like literally a couple £100 per episode for exclusive rights to a new podcast. You never got paid.
No, I said I got paid.
Oh, I thought you said you never got paid. And I was like, wait, hang on.
Them not getting views is not my problem.
Exactly. Their business model, similar to like when Mixer was like, we're going to pay £50 million for Ninja to come to our platform and shut down months later. It's like, what was your plan here? It's like, Brew is a platform for like, we've got a pay to listen podcast model. We're going to pay some YouTubers for exclusive podcasts. Barely promote it. I never got it promoted anywhere at all.
Nope.
I would have only known about it because we were doing a podcast on that platform.
You were being paid to be on it and still didn't know it existed, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it was a wild time, and we did many episodes on there where we joked about every single week. Just, this is going to end because at some point they're going to stop paying us and realize this is a bad idea.
You know the funniest thing about that? That's because I got it written into my contract that I didn't have to promote it.
Yeah, and like agreeing to shit like that, right?
And do you know what the best thing about that is? Like, people say I joke that I'm bad at business. That might be my greatest ever business decision. Well, I got paid to not promote something.
And maybe they just agreed to that because, like, well, naturally he's going to promote something that he's part of.
No, I'm not.
But yeah, just like
that was my greatest ever like hustle, right?
Yeah. Got paid for many episodes of that. But anyway, the reason why Wiki Weekends spawned as an idea is during one of those podcast episodes, Karl and I were going to talk about Pokemon Go. And we just pulled up the wiki page for Pokemon to Go to get our facts right, basically.
Yep.
While we're talking about it. And then we ended that podcast and went, there might be something in that. There might be a kernel of an idea there.
So specifically after the podcast had ended, myself and Lucas were doing as we normally do after a recording session, like just double checking audio, that sort of thing, having a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I don't know if it was me or you who suggested it, but I know we started talking about that conversation was really fun. And specifically, there's something about the way a wiki entry is written. It's so matter of fact that it's inadvertently very funny and makes, and if you're good at riffing and going on tangents and improvising, which is like, what all Fact Theme was, you can make content out of that. And I think what we did like 2 or 3 more episodes where we did something similar. We went through a wiki entry, and again we went, well, that was really fun. And I think myself, I don't know which one of us said it, but during one of those episodes, you presumably, I think it still exists, right? You can go on Spotify, you can still listen to his podcast. I think does it still exist?
Do you still pay for the RSS on that?
Because I also know as well that Brew, for some reason as well, I asked them, if I sign the contract, I get the rights to all the audio after 6 months, and they also agreed to that, so I got it off. I owned it all. So it might still be on that somewhere on Spotify, so you could probably go check and see which one of us says Wiki Weekends out loud first. But yeah, the idea for this channel, this format, was birthed live in a recorded session.
You might want to do something about that, because that's still apparently on Spotify, like when I Google that. And that means that you're paying for an RSS feed every month on that.
Am I?
Yeah, I think it'll only be a few quid, because it's like grandfathered in from back in the day where the RSS wasn't very much.
You know what? I might leave that up because it's funny. It's a monument to my business acumen.
Yeah, there were many episodes of that. I think there might have been
Ooh.
maybe 100, if
Do we,
not
do we make
more.
money on that?
No.
Oh, okay, don't watch that then.
Yeah, they. Speaking of like Karl saying he's bad at business, Brew were not better than Karl at business.
No, terrible. There's also as well. I'll never reveal who it was, but there's one person I got kicked off that program.
Well, Karl, do you quickly want to let me just run the toilet? Because I didn't realize how much I needed the toilet.
Okay,
So
I'm still
you
gonna
tell that
you.
story while I just run away for a
No, I'm not telling
second.
that story.
No, just
It's
tell a
broad
story.
strokes.
Tell a story.
Okay.
Your podcast without me for a minute. Just let me run.
Okay. Can you confirm that, Lucas? I'm presumably going to cut out that section of me talking on my own, but to lead back into the conversation of Wiki Weekends' origins, can you confirm? Didn't we make Wiki Weekends a video series just so I had something for you to do when the brew deal fell through? Right,
Basically,
it fell through.
yeah, is like you were paying me to be a guest and editor on the podcast, and then you were like, "Hey, I want to help you get out of Nando's more and like have something going on, basically." And like, you're like, "What if we just make that a video series so that I can then pay you to edit those videos?"
Yes, because like Brew mysteriously with like their amazing business acumen just stopped making money and shut down. But well, there's that, and I think we must have had a discussion at some point. Again, I don't know who it was who came up with the idea, but I think we pitched and refined the idea of Wiki Weekends together as a series. Right, recorded a few test episodes, and then you went back and you edited that, and you figured out a format. I think as well, you came up with the idea of the word cloud, right?
Yeah,
That was you.
That was back in like the Fat Fiend video days of like, hey, you have like a word cloud thing. You had like the basic background for the Fat Fiend videos were just a bunch of words of like things that you discuss generally because it's like pop culture related and things like that. And I was like, well, there's a wiki right there, so I can make an individual new word cloud based off each wiki page. Because
yeah, you did that. You also came up with the idea of like blue screen, right? But yeah, that's a story for another day.
Yeah,
tell me about Pokemon Go.
Well, yeah, Pokemon Go. More specifically, just the news around Pokemon Go, Karl.
Well, that's the thing, yeah, because presumably people can already go listen to us go through the wiki on Pokemon Go. So what specifically is new? What's the new addendum?
Well, I'm basically bringing back Pokemon Go because for me right now, I heard this news and went, okay, cool, Pokemon Go is dead.
Wait, what's dead?
It's not technically, but it might as well be because Karl, there is a news article here that I'm pulling from BBC News.
Okay.
Saudi investment fund pays $3.5 billion to capture Pokemon Go.
It's dead.
So there's Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, PIF, will pay $3.5 billion or £2.7 billion to buy the gaming division of developer Niantic, whose titles include the hit mobile game Pokemon Go.
Yeah, it's dead.
So that's why I'm bringing Pokemon Go back up, is today that news came out, and
I don't play it anymore, but if I did and I heard that news, I'd immediately uninstall it.
Now my job
all
is...
interest evaporated.
My entire job now is to go to Pokemon Go, move as many of them to Pokemon Home I can, and then deleting that.
Delete.
It's dead and buried in my mind. This is the end of Pokemon Go. And this is the wake. This is our commemoration of this is how it started. And, this is how Wiki Weekend started at least. And now we're going to honor Pokemon Go's death.
By just revisiting an old classic.
Because, obviously, we talked about this years ago. And Pokemon Go has changed.
Pokemon Go had a good run.
It's, but Pokemon Go is a 2016 augmented reality mobile game, part of the Pokemon franchise, developed and published by Niantic in collaboration with Nintendo and the Pokemon Company for iOS, Android devices. And yeah, it's dead.
I don't like how you're not using past tense here.
Yeah, it was. It was.
It was. Do we need to establish why, like, it being bought by a Saudi investment company is just like a nail in the coffin?
I mean,
does it haven't like how many things have been bought out by that and completely ruined? Like they bought a football team. I
Well,
think they killed like SNK.
They not only established football teams, but they've also been spending ridiculous amounts of money to like poach professional football players and take them and managers and take them over to the Saudi league. And whether or not you have like any kind of moral problems with the things going over in Saudi Arabia, like there's a lot of things. Like I don't want to get into this. It's meant to be a relatively entertaining podcast. Like I would do,
Yes, we try.
Encourage people to do their own looks into just problems with like human rights and things like that, right? And just a lot of different problems, and whether you have the like kind of moral obligation to say fuck you to Pokemon Go the moment it becomes owned by like Saudis. Just regardless of that, there's a lot of shit that other countries do. I understand whether you just want to enjoy, your media for your media's sake. Okay, fair enough. But also just generally, it's probably going to get way worse in terms of a product.
Of course, yes, because it's been like a company doesn't pay $3 billion or something that they don't plan to monetize the ever living shit out of.
Mm-hmm.
No one buys something. No one spends that much money on something if they don't expect to make more money out of it than they spent.
And Pokemon Go has already gone quite far down the rabbit hole of.
I've not played it in. I played like the first 6 months it was out, and then just completely stopped thinking about it because I was only interested in Pokemon Go insofar as it was the experience, right? It's like there's the joke people keep making of the last time the world was truly at peace, or was as close we ever probably going to get to peace in the West. Is that 6 months where everyone was playing Pokemon Go?
Mm-hmm. And I'm loading up my phone now to see like what level I was at Pokemon Go, but
one install.
Wow, okay, the game doesn't even want me to play. It's like, are you a returning or new player? I'm like, I'm not even logged in. Nearly dropped my phone. But like, yeah, I haven't played in a while, but I've been an on and off Pokemon Go player for many, many years. With the spawn being in 2016, where we had like a new Pokemania around Pokemon Go, but
let's say we talked about it in the original podcast, like the original Wiki Weekends, like the pre-Wiki Weekends.
Pre-Wiki Weekends, it was just a wiki.
Yeah, it was just a wiki we talked about that week. Wait a minute, there's an idea there. Maybe that's where it came from. Maybe one of us. It would have been. It would have been that because I'm a big fan of alliteration. At some point, I probably said we talked about a wiki last week, and that must have been the jumping off point.
Regardless of how it came to be, but I think both of us would have gone around the idea of like, well, if we're going to come up with a name for this thing, it needs to be alliteration, right?
Yeah.
Or alliterative. Sorry, I should use the right word.
I want to take. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to live on air steal the idea.
For our own
if we
idea.
created it live, I'm going to steal the idea of Wiki Weekends, and I'm going to just rewrite history. It was my idea. It was all me. Lucas was not involved.
Fuck you! It was my idea then.
Shit! Wait, do you own this? Wait, who owns Wiki Weekends right now?
Technically, I think I'm the creator of like the email and the YouTube account.
What we need is a Saudi investment firm to come in and buy us out.
Man, if I could sell Wiki Weekends for billions of dollars, I'd be out right now.
Oh, instantly, right? Here's the thing.
We could make up another channel. I'd still have fun making YouTube content, but I'd never need to worry about money ever again.
That's the thing, yeah. I understand why they sold it for $3.5 billion, but I also hope that they understand why I will never think about their products ever again. It's like those when Twitter channel or Twitter, you mentioned deleting Twitter, those like gimmick accounts where they'd like get 100,000 followers on a gimmick account, sell the account.
Yeah, like get that back. Like, how do I follow an account that's a crypto account? And it's like, oh, like I'm using this as an example. I don't think they ever did, but like We Rate Dogs, for example, of like we just
that guy sold out hard.
Yeah, like the We Rate Dogs page, presumably at some point just sold their X account for like Twitter account, sorry, for like fucking $1 million and let some crypto bro just take it over.
Speaking of like unfollowing an account, that was one that I followed for years up until There was like it was really minor in the grand scheme of things, but it just left this horrible taste in my mouth. Where someone submitted a dog, and it had an Arabic name, I think,
Right.
or it just had a distinctly ethnic sounding name. And when like the guy put up like Joe, they put the post of like, here's this week's dog, 11 out of 10. He changed the name to something Western, and when the owner asked in a public comment, thanks for using my dog, but why didn't you use its name? The guy on his public account put, well, sometimes I use names that people be more familiar with. I don't use quote unquote weird names or something like that. And I just went, fuck off. Like you are like that is a person who's got his entire career built off of other people's content.
Remember, everyone, to submit your pet to Pet of the Week.
Pet of the Week, yeah, we'll whatever your pet's, we'll give your pet its proper name.
Its proper name.
We never do that.
No,
that's the name you gave your pet. That's the name you chose. We wouldn't change it for algorithmic purposes to monetize content you provided to us for free. But that guy went, you know what? Fuck that guy. I'm not following that account anymore.
Yeah. Fuck. Oh shit. You know what we did forget to do though, Karl?
What's that? And I guess like if we're gonna do some recommendations, there was a video that popped through my feed the other day that I'd recommend, and it's just like why do so many gimmick accounts crash out? And it's just a video documenting the very specific and weird trend of gimmick accounts on Twitter pivoting to becoming just right-wing shit stirrers for no reason. And it was so common that there was an account created called Gimmick Accounts Breaking Character, where the guy who ran that account also broke character and just started posting racist Nazi shit.
Oh, great. Oh my god.
Weird, right? What's up?
So I just did a quick check because one thing we did forget to do in our
What's that?
Intro today, Karl, is shout out our lovely people. Shout out tier on our Patreon.
Oh, bollocks, shit. Oh, speaking of giving people credit.
Speaking of like things people pay for and giving people credit, so yeah. I'll just give a lovely shout out to the awesome B of awesome.
You're gonna do all 4 names.
I'm gonna do all 4 names. Don't worry about you. Okay. I'll just do it. The lovely Dan.
Sit here and feel bad about it.
Yeah, you feel bad about not giving a shout out to Dandeli, and just
the thing is, I do feel bad, but this is your job. You run Wiki Weekends, mate.
50-50.
I just what?
Split Karl.
Is it? Do we do a 50-50 or do we do like the 51% so you technically own more of it?
Well, we never technically incorporated anything. This is just. It's not a business or a corporation or anything.
So what you're saying is there's a potential for me to come and steal it.
There is technically. But anyway, we also have to shout out Judge Dredd. Thank you very much. And Karl.
I remember this one. Woo Won King Day Willy Wonka.
No, not.
Wait, what?
Woo Won King Day Willy Wonka Fondue Way to make the name longer.
Oh, they've
updated the name to make it longer and more ridiculous.
That is fantastic. So yeah, we do a shout out at the end of each video we upload, and there's one person on our Patreon, a hero, I should say, on our Patreon, who has a really long name. And a joke we made in the last shout out video we made is there a way to make your name longer? And seemingly that person, that hero, that legend, has gone and made their name even longer for the next shout out we do.
Fair
I appreciate
enough.
that.
Yeah.
If there's one thing we appreciate here on Wiki Weekends, a Karl Smallwood project, is committing to the bit.
I did steal your green screen, but at least I'm using it as a green screen now.
Speaking of stealing bits, you stole my literal gimmick.
But I don't not use the green screen, which was your gimmick. Plenty of people use green screens, Karl.
Yeah, but no one appreciates their green screen like I did.
Like, you used the green screen in a way to barely use your green screen and fuck with your green screen. I just use it like a normal YouTuber. So there's no gimmick there to steal from you.
If we're gonna steal a gimmick, can we steal like the gimmick of YouTubers fighting each other, and we'll fight for the rights to the name?
God no, I don't want to get into this. Oh dear. But yeah, Pokemon Go. We'll move back to the subject at hand, Karl.
Mm-hmm.
One thing of note here is Pokemon availabilities. This is something that like Pokemon since Pokemon Sword and Shield with the quote-unquote Dexit controversy has dealt with through many Pokemon games. There's like 1,025 Pokemon nowadays.
But did they ever do the gimmick of like releasing like Mewtwo in Area 51? I still think Pokemon should have got on that. Do you know when like people raided Area 51? I still think like Pokemon Go should have just put a Mewtwo right at the center of Area 51 just to see who got closest to get it.
But I mean, there's nothing here that says anything about Area 51, so I imagine not.
I always thought that'd be an interesting idea. Joe, when it first came out, people talk about what are they going to do when they release Moltres. It's like they should put Moltres at the center of an active volcano.
Mm.
Earn that shit.
It would be great, but no, they're just available on every fucking street corner. But the game is regularly updated with new Pokemon, and as of 11th of February 2025, there are 884 Pokemon in the game, including regional varieties. It's a total 1,025 within the complete Pokemon franchise.
That's a lot of Pokemon.
That's a lot, but it's not all.
It's not all of them, no.
It's not. But maybe a good time to mention, like, podcast. Hey, if anyone's got a Zarude out there that they're not really that fussed on and want to trade with me, I've got lots of shinies, I've got lots of other spare legendaries, but I want to have a living Pokedex, and I have 1,024 of the 1,025 Pokemon available.
And I'll say, if anyone out there has a Zarude they want to trade to me, so I can tease Lucas
I'm
about
just
having a Zarude.
end stream.
And then I can just come on stream with my Zarude and be like, hey, Lucas,
God,
how much is Wiki Weekends really worth to you?
God,
Do you want to trade 1%? 1% of your ownership to me?
Yeah, like, the Zarude, if anyone's not aware...
Lucas' way, by the way.
Yes, Karl's just teasing, obviously, but, like...
It's a thing called banter.
A legitimate thing, though. If anyone does have a Zarude, I'm in desperate need, and have been for a long time, because they did one fucking mystery gift event during Sword and Shield and have never distributed Zarude again. So if you have a legitimate one, then, you know, find me on, like, Blue Sky or email the Wiki Weekends account or something, or hit us up on the Discord and tag me, because I'm in desperate need for one single Pokemon that can't be legitimately, like, gained.
No, I've got the best idea. I've got the best idea. Instead, message me, send it to me, and then I'll record myself releasing it.
No, she can't say something funny like that, because that means that someone's going to do that instead.
I'll call Lucas and just release it live on camera. Can you imagine that?
Oh, the worst thing is, I kind of want that to happen, because that would make for better, more shareable content, but like...
That's such a good idea, right? Because as soon as you said that, I started creasing on. I went, no, that'd be so perfect.
I'd be so mad, but I'd have to respect it so much as well, which means that people are more likely to reach out to you than me.
That's the best, right? Just release it live on camera.
Hero Infinity.
On stream.
If you want to be a true hero, contact me, not Karl, please.
If you want to be a villain, a true hero, a true villain, choose your path. Do you choose villainy?
This is like, do you want to be like fucking Paragon or Renegade?
Like, that is the ultimate Renegade choice, right? Of give it away.
It really is. God.
Like, Pokemon needs to introduce moral choices, because which they kind of do, right? Isn't that the moves? Like, there's frustration and return that they took out, and I forget who it is, but I think it was like a Pokemon trainer in one game who like is just clearly in story is like addicted to their Pokemon, and one of the Pokemon has frustration, and it has the highest level of it, which means that Pokemon fucking hates them.
I mean, I'd like to joke that it's Gary, but Blue obviously is different from Gary in the games. Like, Blue isn't that much of a dick. He just kind of says, smell you later.
And he's got all the quiff as well. He's got like the ultimate like swag hairdo. Like his hair moves every time he moves his hair.
No, not Red, sorry. I think they're called Silver in Gold and Silver, right? The rival is just like the generic name is Silver. Like, the one with red hair, I imagine they would be the kind of trainer where just all of their Pokemon fucking hates them.
Yeah. That's it. Who's that? Nuzlocke, we called him. Not a hero, Nuzlocke.
And yeah, Barricade or Hero Infinity, like reach out. It would be very helpful to me, and been very frustrated at this for a long time. But also, I would kind of respect if you just reached out to Karl instead.
I want
And
like the multiple people who responded to send me like 6.
yeah, Karl to just send me like a picture of I've got a full box of Zarude.
Just like Russian roulette.
And I'm very aware, like, you can find them on eBay and shit, said Gaming, don't worry, like, it is more of one of those of, I want to have a
It's the honor,
legitimate
right?
one, because then I can make sure it carries through to games, and
Also, it's the honor, right, of knowing
yeah,
that it's a legit one, that you convince someone to trade you. It's more in keeping with the spirit of the games.
I don't want to load it up and it be like, hey, this was made by random hackspot account. I'm like, okay, cool, like, well, where poker hacks exist, I could get a living dex within a day.
What about if someone has one and they just change its name to like Karl is the best? So your Zarude is always called like Karl is the
It's
best.
called like Wiki Weekend sucks.
Yeah, it's just called something like that. What's that thing you did? What is it? You would like call like a Charmander, Charmeleon, and Wonder Trader.
Yeah. So I like doing that because if people aren't aware, when you trade Pokemon, they can't change the nickname if they've already been nicknamed by the original trainer. So more rather than naming them something stupid, I just say, like, for example, if I was trading a bunch of Charmanders that had been breeding, I'd nickname them all Charmeleon, so even when they evolve into a Charizard, they're always just called Charmeleon. And I think that that's like a slightly more just frustrating move than every single one just be calling like balls.
It's also as well like misspelling it is another good one. Like instead of calling it Charizard, call it Charizard.
Imagine like sending someone a correctly spelt for alligator. Just I would find that funny because for alligator wasn't allowed to have an E at the end of
an alligator in
O at the end of gator.
It's like Farfetch'd as well.
It's
the only Pokemon,
right? And it's like
yeah,
it's not allowed to be spelt properly because they couldn't fit the character limit. So it's like GTR at the end of the name or whatever.
It was like Farfetch'd as well. It's the only Pokemon with an apostrophe in its name because they couldn't fit far-fetched as if you spell fetched, so they just put an apostrophe instead.
They didn't even go that far with for alligator. It's like fuck it. Just
oh man, oh it's just so good. Just calling you Weedle Waddle. Send it in. Let's go.
I mean, it doesn't mention here, but there's one thing that I wanted to bring up of like Pokemon Go, obviously, like cultural phenomenon, right? Like 2016.
In the truest sense of the word, yes. Like people, the video I always highlight is there was legit people just got out of their cars. There's that like that famous video of like Times Square or Central Park in New York, where a Vaporeon spawned in Central Park and a guy just gets out of his car and leaves his like to him the Vaporeon is more important than his fucking car. He just leaves his car in the middle of the road. Right?
You
That's
know
how
what?
much it has
At the
stranglehold
time,
on people.
living in the city centre of Liverpool, like it did at times feel like that Pokemon Go was the most important thing going on in the entire city during that summer.
Yeah. I came to your house once, right, when you were like living in the city centre. And we went into just like, I think it just went to get a coffee, and literally every single person was playing Pokemon Go.
And nearly every single time Europe. You were somewhere like in a cafe or something, you'd always see random people with their phones out sprinting at full speed trying to find Pokemon.
Well, I was in Europe when it like during like the apex of the success, and me and my friend were like sat in a park in like Germany or something. And we saw people sprinting, and we were like, "Oh god, is something going on?" Because I think it was just after like there was an attack or something. And we were like really on our guard of like, "Is something going on? Is there attack?" And we just heard like someone in a German accent just go something like "El Snorlax." Well, it's just the spots, but the people were fucking hauling the most ass to get that Snorlax.
And there is one thing that obviously you would think is the thing that killed Pokemon Go that we weren't able to talk about at the time. Not properly, at very least, but it is, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, okay, so this is a new addition to the wiki page. That wouldn't have been something that existed. Imagine if it did. Do you know if you went back and listened to the episode, and during that episode, we like me and you go through it and go, the COVID-19 pandemic. What was that?
Because I'm pretty sure that episode happened prior, right?
It'd be like it would be like 2017, 2018.
Something like that, yeah.
That episode.
We did do some episodes of that podcast in COVID times, but I think it was after lockdown and stuff.
And Wiki Weekends already established, I think.
Happened, yeah. But it says, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Niantic responded by implementing changes and new features in the game which allowed players to easily play remotely. However, it does say that starting on August 1st, 2021, Niantic began rolling back these changes as part of their exploration bonus updates. And I love the fact that, because this wasn't just useful for people in the pandemic, this was useful as accessibility features.
Yeah, people who have like limited mobility, or just people who just can't go to other countries, because that was the thing, right?
It also just made generally the idea of playing Pokemon Go anywhere while you weren't exploring, like, it just made the game more easy to play, because like it was easier to do things like find wild Pokemon and join raids remotely and things like this. It was quality of life features and accessibility features,
and they took them away because.
No, Karl, they didn't take them away. They gave you an exploration bonus update.
Why not just give people more stuff for going outside, but keep those features in place?
Exactly right. That was the feedback given. Why take it away? Why not just give us extra new things for going outside?
It was like during the pandemic, right? Of when they started opening up restaurants and bars and stuff again, and every single place introduced table service.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly but surely, every place has rolled back table service, despite the fact it was just so much better. The amount of places that I went to that I just don't go to anymore because I'll walk in and go, they don't do table service. What the fuck do you mean? I've got to go to the bar.
Yeah, it was weird for me because I was technically working at Nando's still. I was still an employee. But the moment I went back to work after being furloughed, you said to me, hey, I'll find a way to pay you more and make you edit more videos, come and join me full time. That was when that happened. So, like, I had left Nando's for years. I'd worked there for a couple of weeks, very, very early on in, like, restaurants reopening and stuff, right? There was still, like, screens between every table and stuff. Going back there now part-time, it's, like, really weird for me because they still have things like scanning QR codes to make orders on your table if you'd rather do it via your phone and stuff. And it was such a weird adjustment for me to go back into that same restaurant but not be telling people, oh, you have to order over at the tills and stuff.
Yeah. Well, we've come back, like, mega full circle then, right?
Yeah.
And how full circle of our lives become.
They really have, yeah. Like, people didn't know, like, when we first started doing this, like, I became part-time at Nando's in Liverpool to work on stuff with Karl, like the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, because I'm just doing Wiki Weekend stuff now mainly, like, we've now got, obviously, like, this is why we've got things like the Patreon, right? It's like, I've had to go work part-time at Nando's again because, like,
yes, because
I'm not in a fat fiend.
Because I don't, I shuttled that down because I made my money and it was not profitable.
Well, I was going to say the past, like,
an entire team of people, right?
There was a couple of years where you were losing money on Fat Fiend and it just became unfeasible.
You lost money for, like, the entire pandemic, it lost money for, like, 2 years straight.
I don't think it wasn't quite the pandemic, right? It was a bit after that. But yeah, you spent years, like, losing money on Fat Fiend to a point where it's like, I've got to just start doing this all myself.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I just didn't feel right during the pandemic, like, turfing people out on their ass.
Mm-hmm.
And it just got to a point where, like, I gave you guys as much leeway as I could to the point where it's not feasible anymore.
Mm-hmm. On Barricade in the chat, just if you put a message in general chat, I'll, like, reach out to you from there after the podcast is over and I've edited and
I'm just waiting for
Thank you
like
very much.
like a hostage situation.
It is.
Where you've got 30 minutes to respond.
But yeah, just the idea that like, hey, like, we are, as you say, full circle in that sense of like, I'm literally back at Nando's part time, working on stuff with you still, but everything is different because like it's been a response to the pandemic, and like a lot of businesses, as you say, have pivoted and rolled everything back, like Pokemon Go tried to do, of like, no, all those nice things you enjoyed during like lockdown, fuck you, we're
Gone.
taking it back.
It's just the idea, man. Time is a flat circle, isn't it? We're making the exact same content.
I mean, in updated ways, right?
It's still
Very
pretty
different.
funny.
But it's funny, and like
You're
it's one of
definitely
those
clipping out
things
that section about holding. There's the root hostage. You've got to clip that out and put it up somewhere. That's too funny, man. That's too funny to leave 2 hours deep in podcast.
Oh, but yes, it says that players in New Zealand and the United States were the first to receive the post-pandemic changes, and gradually they were rolled out to the rest of the world in accordance with recommendations from global health organizations, it says, in fear of violations in health and personal safety regulations.
Admittedly, it's very hard to sell an app that's primary gimmick is going outside and interact with other people during a global pandemic where you're not allowed to go outside and interact with other people.
The fact that it was like they were so on it of rolling features back that it's like they were having to do it country by country to make sure it fit in line with global health like guidelines. It's like you couldn't even just waited till things like mostly reverted back to normal. You were making sure that you were trying to just exploit people as much as possible. And funny thinking about this now.
Okay.
Because Pokemon Go, as people may know nowadays, we didn't know at the time, but Pokemon Go's most valuable thing it ever got was not money from players.
It was like investment, I imagine, right?
No.
From people
well,
who want
maybe
to
now.
Pokestops.
But realistically, the reason why they're able to pivot and get rid of their entire gaming business is because the game itself was not the important part. It was the data that they were gathering.
Oh, right. So you mean not so not the maps, but the movement data of people?
Yes, and also the scanning data from people as well, right? Because they presumably have kept on to the rights. They've like splintered off a separate thing, and like they've specifically sold now their gaming section of Niantic and everything
they're going to
gaming
keep all
related.
of speaking of like social engineering we mentioned earlier, I imagine they must have reams of data.
And looking back on
of untold value, right? Because what information, right? Anyone at home thinking, well, what can they possibly do with that information? They've got your age, your gender, because you have to tell me you put in your date of birth and your name. They've got that. They've got
to make an account.
And then they have basically 7 straight years of everywhere you've been.
Near 10. Yeah, it's like 9 years old. Yeah.
There are people out there that will be chomping at the bit to buy that.
Oh, yeah. And like, not only that, they have then aggregate data of like people's behavioral patterns day to day, right? And like,
how many times you check your phone? How many times you look at it? Where you go with that phone in your pocket?
Where you go every day on a regular routine when prompted by something like Pokemon Go. And also they have 3D map data for nearly every like important building in every city in the world, because
every
single Pokemon Go stop, it got introduced a feature of like, here, go scan this building, walk around the building or location and scan it, and we'll give you some Pokemon points or whatever.
That's ridiculous. That reminds me of it's annoying that it's Twitter, but the reason why Twitter was seen as like this might be an absolute gold rush, like before Elon Musk revealed he just wanted it to be a piece of shit and like be a Russian stooge. The theory was he wants it to train an AI, because if you own Twitter, you technically own, well, not technically, you legally own millions upon millions of written words in multiple languages that are written from in an organic shorthand way. That'd be so fucking useful for training an AI to talk like a person.
Yeah, and seemingly Grok is still a piece of shit.
No, Grok's actually really interesting because Grok, the AI, can actually tell jokes. It's one of the few AIs that's actually, it speaks like a person instead of like a fucking weirdo robot. It also, because Twitter, at least when he got, the data for it was gathered, tended to trend quite liberal.
Mm-hmm.
It
for,
would
for a
not sure if
large
it does
period
anymore.
of its time and existence.
When you'd ask it questions such as, can you tell me, do you how do you refer to someone who is trans? It would give you a very well written answer that wasn't bad.
The funniest thing is that'll give you a better answer than Elon Musk would.
It would, yeah.
Very notably. And I also just want to shout out Justin James for a lovely super chat. Just maybe my favorite one I've seen. Just here you go. Cheers, lads. Okay, bye.
Hey, bye. That's not bad, right? It's
I've just here's some money. Bye.
That's the
thank you.
It's just you're at the bar, you've had a few drinks, just chucking a few quid down for barman, right? It's like,
That
you've been
literally
talking
just
to me for a couple hours.
walking up to us, buying us around, and leaving.
Yeah.
Absolute hero. Thank you.
Optimum fan interaction. Let's go.
Yeah. It does make me think, like, is the reason why all these pandemic alterations were, like, rolled back
Removed
so quickly
to create more of that data
is because that data was going to be so valuable, and we weren't really aware of it at the time. But thinking about it retrospectively, it's like, why would they roll back all these cool accessibility features? It's like I'm now just putting two and two together in my head of like, because they needed to push people to go back outside to create that valuable data, and that was what the goal was all
to advertisers or any number of
fucking military applications, right? They've got
just
global data near enough on
just
every one of us. Like,
well, it's the thing, isn't it? If something's free, then you're the product being sold. It's like Facebook, right? Hey, do Facebook train like facial detecting software on people's photos? Because those like low stakes conspiracies of 10-year challenge. What did you look like 10 years ago? To now, it's like the very plausible theory that that's either promoted by Facebook or is something they themselves started because it allows them to train face detecting software that can now realistically learn how people age.
Yeah.
It's like the Luigi Mangione thing where he got caught in a McDonald's and they're like, someone at McDonald's fucking snitched. Have you seen, like, there's a very prevalent theory that I am inclined to believe that there is probably some network of facial detecting shit out there we have got no clue about that they use to track this guy the fuck down. That'll presumably in a couple of, like, some Patriot Act level shit.
There was one picture released when he was identified as the potential suspect, right, of like him at the hostel or whatever.
I'm betting, or I would not be surprised that there is some like Patriot Act era Batman style right annihilating shit out there that they use to track this guy down.
But who's to even say that it would be government operated? Maybe privately operated, and they just handed that information over or sold that information, right?
Well, just they deputize some like social media site of like, hey, can we just check posts?
And that's the thing is, like, I'm generally not a conspiracy theory-esque person.
I buy into that one though.
But
that was way too fast.
Shit where it is like, is our data and facial recognition and shit like that, is stuff like that being sold off to companies? We know it is.
We know it is.
That kind of data is some of the most valuable data in like all of existence and being sold actively to all different sites and companies and phishing scams and blah 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 blah. But like the idea that the goal all along for Niantic was not to necessarily make money off the game, which they made billions off, but to
The
have
real
something way
value.
more valuable, which is global data of people's active movements and patterns and behaviors, and also, as I say, not just that, but also probably the most like established just catalog of 3D scanned buildings maybe in the entire
Yep.
world.
Yeah, because I imagine there's something in their code or they're deep in their terms of service where they own that. I mean, you turn your camera on to
They'll
scan
own every
something.
single scan of every single Pokestop you've ever done, yeah.
Also seeing inside people's homes.
They
Remember that
might
thing with
not they
like,
might
remember
not technically own that. I
they've
don't
seen
know.
it. Remember that thing, like think back to a few years ago with Connect, where like Microsoft was really, really pushing Connect to the point where they're like, hey, you can't have an Xbox if you don't have a Connect. And then a couple of years later, a bunch of proprietary stuff they developed got leaked where, for example, they'd never implemented, but they could have done, a service where your Connect would detect if you're watching an advert or not, and it would track your head movement to see if you're watching the TV,
But that's
and you would be,
literally something out of Black Mirror. And I'm not
yeah,
saying that as like a jokey thing. There is literally an episode in Black Mirror where he stops looking at the advertisement, I think it is, and
and
they're
it just
like,
stops playing.
it stops playing and goes, you need to watch this.
Yeah, and Microsoft had a patent on software, and they frame it obviously as a positive thing for advertisers. Of you can ensure that the person is watching your ad and reward them for doing so. And the pitch shows that literally it's a little stick man put his hands in there and go McDonald's, and he gets a reward for shouting McDonald's because now your TV can tell that you're being paying attention. And you'll be, but you know, companies are.
Well,
it's a lot easier to punish someone for not watching it than it is to reward someone for watching it, right? Because one of them requires you to literally do nothing.
some websites do that already, because I know ITV at least went this, because I capture a lot of clips and stuff, because I will straight up just like use OBS to screen capture like whatever, you know, Disney Plus or whatever that I'm trying to get. And
Yeah.
you know, as long as you turn off the right settings and stuff, you can still currently do that. The ITV one though, if I click on a video and it goes, right, we're all playing ads, and I click on a different tab, it stops playing the ad.
Yep.
And it's like, I'm waiting for you to come back. If my ad's not being played on the current active tab, it stops.
Yep. And that, how far a step is it till, oh, your built-in webcam. To access this service, you need to turn on your webcam. Why? Just turn it on. And then the software, which we know exists, we know it works, cameras are getting better every day, are just, at what point does a company say, fuck it, we know we can just tell if you're not, your eyes aren't looking at the screen, and we stop playing the ad.
Yeah, because like, you know, obviously, it's not hard to get around that by just pulling, for my example of like, just pull the tab to a separate window where
But
it's the only
till they
active
can
playing
detect
thing,
that?
mute it, and then put it on in the background. And like, I can
Yep.
get around it still. There's always workarounds, but like, how long until they figure out the workarounds for the workaround?
Like I said, that Connect one, that's real. You can go look up like the pitch where it's like little stick man, McDonald's,
Well,
and you get
bear in mind,
rewarded.
there's also kind of similar tech that Activision were trying to employ, where they would match you if you hadn't actively been buying skins to be
With people
match
who are better than
made
you.
with people who were buying current skins in the game on the store, so that then you would be encouraged to see the cool skins and then go and purchase them.
Yeah, and this is not like a conspiracy, this is a thing.
That
And I
was
guess,
a legitimate pitch that Activision were putting through, going, we have the technology to do this.
yeah.
Listen, investors, this is something we might do. This could make us more money.
And Lucas, right? Are you familiar with drink verification cam?
Wait, what?
Drink verification cam. So
I
it's
don't
like
know
a
what
legendary shitpost that came out. Do you know, like in regards to the Xbox One Connect?
Right, yeah.
when that like shit show happened, there was just a now legendary post on 4chan that has become like internet lore.
Okay.
And it is a proposed look at the future. So, it's 2018. Wake up feeling sick after a night of playing video games. Excited to play some Halo 2K19. Xbox on. Xbox on. Please verify that you are Anon332 by saying Doritos do it right. Doritos do it right. Error. Please drink verification can. Reaching to my Doritos trademark, Mountain Dew trademark, Halo 2K19 trademark war chest. Only a few cans left. Needed to verify 14 times last night. Still feeling sick. Force it down and grumble out. That really hit the spot. Xbox does nothing. I attempt to smile. Connecting to verification server. Verification complete. Finally, boot up Halo 2K19. Finding multiplayer match. Error. User attempting to steal online gameplay. My mother just walked into the room. Adding another user to your pass. This will be charged to your credit card. Do you accept? No. Console entering lock state. To unlock, please drink verification can. Drink last can. Warning, out of verification cans. An order has been shipped and charged to your credit card. Drink half the can. Oh god, I'm going to be sick. Pour half the can out the window. Piracy detected. Please complete this advertisement to continue. Mountain Dew ad plays. I have to dance for it. Feeling so sick. Makes me sing along. Dancing and singing. Mountain Dew is for me and you. Throw up on myself. Throw up on my TV and entertainment system. Router shouts out. Error. No connection. Xbox shutting off. Please drink verification can. And the thing is, every single thing that's joked about in that shitpost is a thing that a company has pitched. Every single thing there is something that could theoretically happen tomorrow, but companies won't do it because they're afraid they'll piss us off.
Yeah.
And they will no doubt keep pushing. We are the proverbial frog in the pot of boiling water. And they'll just keep pushing, they'll keep nudging.
And
until eventually it's just the future.
I haven't played the game yet, and I haven't seen much about it, but one tiny snippet that I quickly went away from because I don't want too much spoil, but I did find funny. There is a moment in the new game, Split Fiction, and it's not too spoilery, it's just a little joke that they threw in there.
Okay.
And what happens is at some point you're in an action sequence and you need to use your phone. And in game, it's please complete a capture to do this, and it's you're panicking and trying to complete the game, and the game's please go through a capture. It's oh god, no, oh.
Lucas, please drink verification can.
Yeah,
remember on Xbox,
and
they tried to pitch as a feature that they thought people would respond positively to. If two people, because this is another thing, the Kinect, they had proprietary shit pitched behind the scenes of it would detect if two people were watching a game, and they pitched to Netflix, hey, on our console you can guarantee that people won't steal your content because our Kinect that has to be turned on, that is a camera pointed directly into our user's room, will know if there are two people there.
Yeah.
And they pitched that to Netflix as a positive.
To clarify, by the way.
Yes.
Just want to point out that is clearly the developers, Joseph Harris and all this, being self-aware and making a joke about this kind of shit.
How bad it could be, right? Yeah.
And not the game actually trying to do that awful stuff of verifying you actually own the game, playing the games. It's a joke, clearly.
Yeah.
I just don't want people to be oh man, what a fucking bullshit EA game, blah, blah, blah. It's no, they're making fun of it. They're in on the joke. Just to clarify, I haven't played the game, but clearly it's very obvious that they're taking the piss.
Yeah. But in regards to, Pokemon Go and looking inside your room, that's what it reminded me of it. Of one of the other proposed things they had is that, hey, doing the Kinect, people are asking well, how good is that camera? They're it's pretty good. Can it detect the dimensions of a room? Of course it can. What are you doing with that data? Because the dimensions of somebody's room are incredibly useful to advertisers. Because if you've got the basic dimensions of someone's room, there's a lot of things you can tell about that person. You can get their general, and if you combine it with the metadata of the location data from the always online connectivity,
and also the data of their account, of their age, name,
their purchasers,
gender,
their age,
background.
their name. Also, how many people live in that house. Also, can the camera read product names?
Yeah.
Kind of. Can it detect I said, it detects how many people are in your room. And they could sell that shit to advertisers. And remember, they try to push this as a positive.
I think one of the
they,
main features that was positive was like when you sit down, it will see your face and log you in automatically because it knows who you are.
Yeah, and that, admittedly, you've got something similar with Apple ID. Like my phone will turn on when I look at my phone. The difference between that is I don't put my phone there and have it beaming. The camera's not on 99% of the time, constantly scanning my room. It only does that feature when I want it to. But they pitched that as a positive. They thought people would be okay with having a camera shining directly into their room. And they almost got away with it.
And yeah, I guess this podcast has gone down a very dystopian lens.
If you compare this podcast to the first one, we were a lot more hopeful about them, Lucas.
We were a lot more hopeful. And like, yeah, this is why I was like, I know, I'm very aware that like we recently just talked about Pokemon, but the discussion by bringing Pokemon Go was not necessarily to like talk about Pokemon this time.
Pokemon Go. It's
whereas like
we live in a very different world.
We do, and like I tried to do my best, and we both do, of trying not to like overlap too many similar topics and talking points back to back, so that if someone's not interested in like Pokemon, they're not watching 3 videos of me talking about Pokemon back to back. So I am aware that like that's a thing, and I'm sorry for bringing Pokemon back up after I've just released a video on Pokemon, but I thought that this was a very different and interesting discussion to have that isn't necessarily like focused on the Pokemon games themselves.
That's the thing, yeah. The discussion was mostly about God, we live in a nightmare hellscape world.
We do, and I'm sorry to bring that to like, but what again is meant to be a light-hearted, more
it's funny,
entertaining podcast, but it's something I find interesting,
fascinating. Yeah, like we're laughing because if we weren't laughing, we'd be crying.
So hopefully people can like come along for the ride with us and realize that hey, doing our best to not get too sad and upset, but like it is a topic that we're both very intrigued about and want to discuss.
Also, as well, I'm hoping some of the shit I've mentioned there, people are like, wait, what is that a thing? And they go look up and go, oh no. Be a more well-informed consumer. And because it is in the best interests of literal billion-dollar companies that you remain ignorant on these subjects.
If you just want to be more in line with the let's get hype about Pokemon and have fun, come and join me on Twitch tomorrow. Like, yeah, just
McDonald's.
Come and play Pokemon Infinite Fusion with me, or watch me play Pokemon Infinite Fusion, I should say. But yes, it's been a podcast.
It's been certainly. It's so good. Just McDonald's.
I'm just gonna message Karl after this. Like, should we play some more? Should we just not worry about the world?
Who owns that? Oh, some Chinese company.
Oh god, fucking NetEase firing everyone for making too much money. Dear God. Anyway, thank you all for watching and listening, and I hope everyone has a lovely day.
Remember, drink verification can.